The rifle range at Fort Benning smelled like gunpowder and Georgia clay. It was a scent that had soaked into the earth over decades, a permanent marker of where men learned to kill at distance. Chief Warrant Officer 2 Elena Reeves stood behind the firing line, arms crossed, watching a fresh batch of sniper candidates struggle with fundamentals that should have been muscle memory by now. Private First Class Jackson was jerking the trigger again. She could see it from 30 feet away. The Barrett M82A1 barked, and the round kicked up dirt 2 feet left of the target at 800 meters. Jackson swore under his breath. "You are strangling that weapon, soldier." Elena's voice cut through the morning heat like a blade. "Squeeze, do not pull. The trigger breaks on its own if you let it." Jackson looked up at her. He was 6'3", 220 pounds of Iowa farm boy who had never met someone like Elena Reeves. At 4 feet 11 inches and 105 pounds, she looked like someone's kid sister. But the silver star on her chest and the Che-Tac M200 intervention mounted in a glass case on the range house wall told a different story. "Ma'am, yes ma'am." Jackson reset his position, but his eyes kept drifting to the glass case. "That true what they say about that rifle?" Elena followed his gaze. The Che-Tac sat in its cradle like a relic in a museum. 53 inches of matte black polymer in precision machined steel. The scope alone cost more than most cars. She had not touched it in 14 months. "What do they say, Private?" "That you made a shot. A long one, real long." Elena's jaw tightened. "The records are classified. Focus on your zero." But Jackson was 22 and stupid with youth. "Come on, ma'am. Everyone knows you are the best long-range shooter in the Army. They say you can hit targets at distances that are not even possible." "There is no such thing as impossible, Private. Just math you have not done yet. Now get back on that rifle before I have you running laps until you puke." Jackson wisely shut his mouth and returned to his prone position. Elena watched him settle, watched his breathing even out. He would be fine. He had the build for it, the patience. What he lacked was the reason. The fire. The thing that turned a good shooter into someone who could make the shot when everything was falling apart. Her phone buzzed in her cargo pocket. Not the regular phone. The other one. The red one that only rang when the world was about to demand something she did not want to give. She pulled it out. Unknown number, encrypted line. Her thumb hovered over the decline button. Then she saw the area code. 202, Washington, D.C. She stepped away from the firing line and answered. "This is Reeves." The voice on the other end was female, clipped, efficient. "Chief Warrant Officer Reeves, this is Lieutenant Commander Patricia Hayes, JSOC. You are needed for a mission brief. Wheels up from Benning in 6 hours. Pack for 2 weeks. Bring your custom ammunition." Elena's stomach dropped. "Ma'am, I am an instructor now. I do not do field operations anymore." "The decision is above my pay grade, Reeves. Orders come from SOCOM. You are the only one who can make the shots they need. With respect, ma'am, there are a dozen snipers who can do whatever this mission requires." There was a pause on the line, a long one. Then Hayes spoke again, and her voice had changed, softer, almost sad. "It is about Obsidian Ridge." The world tilted. Elena sat down hard on the wooden bench behind the range line. Her hands had gone numb. "Say that again." "The target is at Obsidian Ridge. Same compound, same mountain. I am told you have personal reasons to want this one." Elena closed her eyes. Obsidian Ridge. 6 years ago, it had been called something else. Viper's Nest. That was where her father had died. Captain Marcus Reeves, 1st Battalion, 75th Ranger Regiment. Killed in action while pursuing an arms dealer who had supplied half the IEDs that turned Humvees into coffins across Afghanistan. The man had escaped. Her father had not. "Who is the target?" Elena heard herself ask. "Khalid Hassan, the architect. We have confirmed intelligence he is operating out of the rebuilt compound. And Reeves, there is more. He is not alone." "Who else?" Hayes hesitated. "That is need to know. You will be briefed in person. But I am told to tell you this. The secondary target is the man who set the trap that killed your father." Elena's breath caught in her throat. She had been 14 when the Army chaplain came to their door, 14 when her mother collapsed in the hallway, 14 when she decided that grief was just pain that had not been weaponized yet. She joined ROTC at 15, enlisted at 17 with her mother's forged signature, made warrant officer by 24, and every single bullet she had ever fired had been in her father's name. "I will be there," Elena said. 6 hours, Reeves. Do not be late." The line went dead. Elena sat on that bench for a long time staring at the Chaytak in its case. The weapon had been her partner for 3 years of deployments. Iraq, Syria, Afghanistan. It had never failed her, but after the last mission, after what she had seen and done, she swore she would never pick it up again. Some things you could not unsee, some shots you could not unfeel. But this was different. This was her father. She stood and walked to the range house, unlocked the glass case with the key she kept on a chain around her neck. The Chaytak was heavy, 50 pounds of purpose. She lifted it out and felt the familiar weight settle against her shoulder. It fit like it had been carved from her own bones. "Ma'am?" Jackson had followed her. His eyes were wide. "You going somewhere?" Elena turned to face him. "When I get back, Private, you are going to show me a perfect cold bore shot at 1,000 meters. No excuses. Understood?" "Yes, ma'am." Jackson paused. "Ma'am, can I ask you something?" "Make it quick. What is the longest shot you ever made?" Elena looked at the rifle in her hands, then at Jackson's young, eager face. He would learn the answer eventually. They all did. But she was not going to be the one to tell him. "Long enough to matter, Private. That is all that counts." She left him standing there and headed for the armory to pack her kit. 3 hours later, Elena was on a military flight out of Benning, headed for Joint Base Andrews. She sat alone in the cargo bay of a C-130, surrounded by her gear. The Chaytak case, her drag bag with ghillie suit and range cards, 50 rounds of custom-loaded .408 ammunition, each one hand-selected for weight tolerance within .01 grains. She had learned to load her own rounds from the best. Gunnery Sergeant Thomas Sullivan, Wraith. He had found her when she was 15, angry, and looking for a way to turn her father's death into something that mattered. A retired Marine Scout sniper, 62 years old at the time, with hands that still did not shake and eyes that could read wind better than meteorologists. He had watched her at a junior ROTC shooting competition, watched her put 10 rounds into a 1-inch group at 300 meters with iron sights. After the match, he walked up to her and said 6 words that changed her life. "You shoot like you are angry." She had turned to look at him. "Who the hell are you?" "Someone who knew your father, and someone who knows what you are trying to do. You want to honor him? Learn to shoot the right way. I will teach you." For 3 years, Wraith had been her mentor, her drill sergeant, her second father. He taught her to read Mirage, to calculate for Coriolis effect, to slow her heart rate to 50 beats per minute. He taught her that size did not matter in this job. A smaller body meant smaller heat signature, easier concealment, less oxygen consumption at altitude. What mattered was discipline, math, and the willingness to pull the trigger when the moment demanded it. "One shot, one life," he would say. "Make it count." She had not seen him in 6 months. He had stopped answering her calls, stopped replying to emails. She told herself he was old, retired, enjoying whatever peace looked like for men who had spent 50 years looking through scopes at people who needed to die. But deep down, she knew something was wrong. Her red phone buzzed again. Another encrypted message. This one was not from JSOC. It was from Walter Reed National Military Medical Center. The text was short, 3 lines that made her blood turn to ice. "CW2 Reeves, Gunnery Sergeant Thomas Sullivan requested you be notified. Stage 4 lung cancer, Agent Orange exposure confirmed. 4 to 6 months. He is asking for you." Elena read the message 3 times, then a 4th. The cargo bay suddenly felt too small. She stood up, paced the length of the empty plane, sat back down. Her hands were shaking. Wraith was dying, the man who taught her everything, the man who turned her rage into precision. He was dying, and he had not told her. She looked at her watch. The flight to Andrews was 2 hours. From there, she was supposed to go directly to the JSOC briefing at MacDill Air Force Base in Florida. But Walter Reed was in Bethesda, Maryland, 20 minutes from Andrews. She made the decision before she could talk herself out of it. She sent a message to Commander Hayes. "Medical emergency. Family will be 3 hours late to brief. Apologies." The reply came back in seconds. "You get 4 hours, not a minute more. This mission does not wait." Elena closed her eyes and tried to remember the last thing she had said to Wraith. It had been 6 months ago. A phone call. He had sounded tired, his voice rough like gravel in a can. She asked if he was okay. He said he was fine. Just getting old. She believed him because it was easier than asking questions. Now he was dying, and she was about to walk into a mission at the place where her father had been killed. The symmetry was too perfect, too cruel. The plane touched down at Andrews 90 minutes later. Elena grabbed her gear and found a staff car waiting on the tarmac. She threw her bags in the back and gave the driver one instruction. Walter Reed, Oncology Wing, as fast as you can without killing anyone. The drive took 18 minutes. The hospital was a massive complex of buildings, all glass and concrete and sterile white walls. Elena had been here before. This was where they brought the ones who came home broken. Missing pieces, missing minds. She walked through the automatic doors and followed the signs to oncology. Room 412. The nurse at the desk pointed down a long hallway. He has been asking for you. Elena walked slowly. Each step felt like wading through concrete. She did not know what she was going to see. Wraith had always been a force of nature. 6'2", 200 pounds of muscle even at 68. Hands like steel traps. A voice that could crack concrete. She could not picture him weak. Could not picture him dying. She reached the door, took a breath, knocked. Come in. The voice was his, but smaller, thinner. Elena pushed the door open and stopped. Wraith was in the hospital bed, propped up on pillows, an oxygen tube running under his nose. He had lost at least 40 pounds. His skin was gray, stretched tight over bones that had once been wrapped in Marine Corps muscle. The hospital gown hung loose on his frame. An IV drip fed clear liquid into his left arm. The monitors beside his bed beeped with mechanical indifference, counting down the heartbeats he had left. But his eyes, those pale blue eyes that had watched over her for years, that had seen things in Vietnam no human should witness, that had looked through scopes at distances where targets became mathematics instead of men. They were still sharp, still alive, still the eyes of Gunnery Sergeant Thomas Sullivan, Scout Sniper, United States Marine Corps. Ellie, he smiled, and it was like the sun breaking through clouds. You came. Elena crossed the room in 3 steps and grabbed his hand. It was cold, too cold, the kind of cold that came from the inside, from cells giving up, from a body slowly shutting down systems it no longer had the energy to maintain. Gunny, why did you not tell me? Because you would have worried, and worry does not fix cancer. He squeezed her hand with what little strength he had left. His grip was still there, somewhere under the weakness. Still trying to be strong for her the way he had been strong for 3 years when she was a broken 15-year-old girl who wanted to learn how to kill the men who killed her father. How are you, kid? Still teaching those knuckleheads to shoot? I was, until about 4 hours ago. She sat down in the chair next to his bed. JSOC called. They are sending me on a mission. Wraith's eyes sharpened. What mission? Obsidian Ridge. He went very still. The heart monitor beeped steadily in the silence. Finally, he spoke. So it is happening. You knew? Elena leaned forward. Gunny, what the hell is going on? Wraith reached over to the bedside table with his free hand and pulled out a manila folder. It was old, creased, marked with coffee stains. He handed it to her. Open it. Elena opened the folder. Inside were photographs, intelligence photos, surveillance images from 2008. She recognized the compound immediately. Viper's Nest, before it became Obsidian Ridge. The photos showed armed men, vehicles, weapon caches, and in one photo, clear as day, 2 men shaking hands. One was Khalid Hassan, younger but unmistakable. The other man wore a Pakistani army uniform, colonel's rank insignia. His face was partially shadowed, but Elena could make out enough details. Sharp features, cold eyes. Who is this, she asked. His name is Colonel Rashid Zahir, Pakistani ISI, Inner Services Intelligence. And he is the man who killed your father. Elena's vision narrowed. The room seemed to tilt. What? Wraith coughed, a deep rattling sound that shook his whole body. The nurse had warned Elena not to upset him, but this was too important. He needed to say this, needed her to know. I was there, Ellie. June 2008. Your father's unit got intelligence that Hassan was at Viper's Nest. Solid intel, or so we thought. I was attached to the Ranger platoon as a sniper asset. Your dad was leading the assault element. We went in fast, hit the compound hard. But Hassan was not there. It was a trap. Elena's hands were shaking. The photos were blurring. Zahir said it. Wraith continued. He fed us the intelligence through a cutout, made it look like Hassan was vulnerable. But the whole compound was rigged. IEDs on every approach, pressure plates under the floors. Your father's team triggered the main device during the breach. 4 men killed instantly. Your dad, he coughed again, harder this time. Your dad, he lived for about 3 minutes after the blast. I pulled him out of the rubble, held him while he bled out. Elena could not breathe. She had known her father died in an IED blast. She had read the after-action report, but hearing it like this, from Wraith, the man who had been there. What did he say, she whispered. Wraith's eyes were wet. He said to tell you that he loved you, that you were the best thing he ever did. And then he said something else. 1 shot, 1 life. Tell my daughter to make it count. Those were his last words. Ellie, I have carried them for 6 years, and now I am giving them to you. Elena pressed her palms against her eyes. She would not cry. Not here. Not now. When she lowered her hands, her voice was steady. Zahir is the secondary target on this mission, is he not? Wraith nodded. I made some calls. Told J-Sock that if they were going after Hassan, they needed you. Because I knew Zahir would be there too. He never leaves Hassan's side anymore. They are partners now. And Ellie, I need you to do something for me. Anything. Take the shot I could not. Wraith's grip on her hand tightened. I had Zahir in my scope that day. Perfect shot. 600 meters. No wind. I had him dead center. And I missed. Pulled the trigger a fraction too early. The round went 2 inches left. Zahir ducked behind the cover and escaped. If I had made that shot, your father would have had time to abort the breach. He would still be alive. It was not your fault, Gunny. It was. And I have lived with it every day since. But now you have a chance to finish it. You are going to Obsidian Ridge. You are going to find Zahir. And you are going to make the shot I missed. The heart monitor was beeping faster now. Wraith was getting agitated. Elena put her other hand over his. I will, she promised. For Dad, for you. I will make the shot. Wraith relaxed back into the pillows. Good girl. He closed his eyes. There is one more thing you should know. What? I am on the operations channel. JSOC gave me a direct feed to the mission radio net. I told them I needed to hear it, to know that it got done. Gunny, you should be resting. I will rest when you pull that trigger, Ellie. Not before. His eyes opened again. Now get out of here. You have a briefing to get to. And do me a favor. What? Prove to those SEAL boys that size does not mean a damn thing. Show them what a Reeves can do. Elena stood. She wanted to say more. Wanted to tell him that he had been more of a father to her than anyone after Marcus died. That every shot she made, every target she eliminated, was built on the foundation he had laid. But the words stuck in her throat. So instead, she squeezed his hand one more time. 1 shot, 1 life, Gunny. I will make it count. I know you will, kid. Now go raise some hell. Elena walked out of that hospital room and did not look back. If she had, she would have seen Wraith watching her go, a single tear running down his weathered face. The briefing at MacDill Air Force Base was held in a secure facility 3 levels underground. Elena arrived with 10 minutes to spare, her gear slung over her shoulder, her mind still back in that hospital room. She was escorted through security checkpoints and retinal scanners until she reached a conference room with no windows and walls thick enough to stop tank rounds. Commander Patricia Hayes was already there, standing next to a large screen showing satellite imagery. She was 40-something, Navy, with the kind of presence that suggested she had spent more time on submarines than behind desks. Next to her stood 4 men in desert camouflage, their uniforms stripped of all identifying patches except for one thing. The SEAL Trident. Elena recognized the breed immediately. These were Tier 1 operators, Naval Special Warfare Development Group, DevGru, the ones who got bin Laden, the ones who did not exist on paper and did not fail in practice. They stood like wolves, loose and ready, eyes constantly scanning for threats, even in a secure room 3 levels underground. Each one was over 6 feet tall. Each one probably weighed twice what she did. Each one had done things in dark places that would never make it into history books. They looked at her the way wolves look at something small and unfamiliar. Curious, skeptical, vaguely amused. The biggest one stepped forward. He was 6'3", barrel-chested, with a beard that belonged in a Viking saga. His hands were the size of dinner plates. His voice was deep and dismissive, the voice of a man who had spent 20 years in the teams and did not have patience for anything that looked like a liability. This is the sniper? He looked her up and down like she was a piece of equipment someone had ordered by mistake. You sure she is not lost? High school's about 3 miles that way. Elena set her gear down carefully and met his eyes. Her voice was flat. And you must be the team leader. Let me guess. You think size matters? You think because I can fit in a carry-on bag, I cannot do the job. The man's jaw tightened. I'm Master Chief Petty Officer Derek Lawson. And yeah, I think size matters when we are humping 100 pounds of gear up a mountain at 12,000 feet. I think it matters when we need someone who can keep up. And I think it matters when the enemy is shooting back. Elena walked up to him. She had to tilt her head back to meet his eyes. He was a full 2 feet taller. She did not blink. Master Chief, I have been underestimated my entire life by people bigger than you, louder than you, meaner than you, and every single one of them learned the same lesson. The rifle does not care how tall I am. Physics does not care how much I weigh. And the enemy definitely does not care when he is dead at a distance he did not think was possible. So you can question my size all you want, but when you are pinned down and bleeding out and you need someone to make a shot that saves your life, you are going to be real glad I am small enough to get where you cannot. The room went silent. Lawson stared at her. Then slowly a smile crept across his face. It was not a nice smile. It was the smile of a man who enjoyed a challenge. All right, Tinkerbell, we will see if you can back up that mouth. Commander Hayes cleared her throat. If you two are done measuring, we have a mission to brief. She clicked a remote and the satellite image on the screen zoomed in. This is Obsidian Ridge, formerly known as Viper's Nest. It is located in the Hindu Kush Mountains, 17 kilometers from the Pakistan border. The compound has been rebuilt and fortified over the past 6 years. Our target is Khalid Hassan, wanted for arms trafficking, conspiracy to commit terrorism, and approximately 400 deaths attributed to weapons he supplied. What is the capture versus kill order? Lawson asked. Preferably alive, Hayes said. CIA wants to interrogate him, but if kinetic action is required, he is authorized for termination. She clicked again and a second photo appeared. A man in a Pakistani army uniform. This is your secondary target, Colonel Rashid Zahir, ISI. He is Hassan's partner and protector. Zahir is officially a ghost. Pakistan denies he exists. We deny we are hunting him. If he ends up dead, no one asks questions. Elena stared at the photo. This was the man, the one who set the trap, the one who killed her father. She memorized every line of his face. What is the operation plan? Lawson asked. Halo insertion at 30,000 feet. You land on the North Ridge and move to the compound on foot. The terrain is vertical. The air is thin. Enemy forces number approximately 24 hostiles, plus automated defenses. We have intelligence that Hassan is planning to move location within 72 hours. This is our window. Automated defenses? One of the SEALs asked. What are we looking at? Sentry guns on the main gate towers. Remote operated, DSHK heavy machine guns. They are linked to a thermal detection system. If you walk into their field of fire, you die. Your job is to disable them and breach the compound before Hassan can escape. And what is she doing? Lawson jerked his thumb at Elena. Reeves is your overwatch, Hayes said. She will establish a sniper position and provide precision fire support. Her secondary objective is to eliminate Zahir if the opportunity presents. Lawson snorted. Overwatch from where? We are going to be moving fast. She will not be able to keep up. Hayes looked at Elena. Care to answer that, Chief? Elena stepped up to the screen and pointed at the satellite image. There is an observation tower on the southeast corner of the compound. 12 stories. It overlooks the entire valley. If I can get to the top, I will have eyes on everything. Your approach, the breach point, and any escape routes Hassan might use. And how exactly are you planning to get up there? Lawson asked. That tower is inside the compound, behind the gates, behind the guns, behind 24 men who want to kill you. Elena smiled. It was the first time she had smiled since leaving the hospital. I will fit where you cannot, Master Chief. That is the whole point. Hayes shut down the screen. You have 18 hours until wheels up. Get your gear squared away. Get some rest. This mission is going to test every one of you. She looked at Lawson. And Master Chief, I do not care if you like her. I do not care if you trust her. But you will treat her with the respect her rank and record deserve. She has more confirmed kills at extreme range than your entire team combined. So park the ego and do your job. Lawson's face darkened, but he nodded. Yes, ma'am. Dismissed. The SEALs filed out. Elena started to follow, but Hayes stopped her. Reeves, a word. Elena turned. Yes, ma'am? Hayes waited until the room was empty. Then she pulled out a file and handed it to Elena. This is everything we have on Zahir, including some things that are not in the official brief. Elena opened the file. Inside were surveillance photos, transcripts of intercepted communications. In one document marked top secret, it was a CIA assessment. She scanned the first page and froze. Zahir is listed as a probable double agent? Hayes nodded. There is evidence he has been feeding information to our intelligence services. Low-level stuff, nothing actionable, but enough to make some people think he might be playing both sides. Elena looked up. Are you telling me not to kill him? I am telling you the situation is complicated. Hassan is definitely the bad guy. Zahir is, Elena closed the file. He killed my father. I know. Hayes' voice softened. And that is why I am telling you this now instead of after the mission. Because when you have him in your scope, you need to make a choice. Revenge or duty. I cannot make that choice for you. But whatever you decide, own it. Elena tucked the file under her arm. Understood, ma'am. One more thing. Hayes pulled out a small radio. Encrypted frequency. Your mentor, Gunnery Sergeant Sullivan. He asked to be patched into the operations net. I approved it. He will be able to hear everything on mission. Elena's throat tightened. Thank you, ma'am. He must have been one hell of a teacher. He still is. Hayes nodded. Good luck, Reeves. Bring them all home. Elena left the briefing room and found a quiet corner in the barracks to read the Zahir file. The more she read, the more confused she became. The CIA assessment laid out a convincing case that Zahir had turned, that he was feeding intelligence to undermine Hassan from the inside, that he had prevented at least 3 major attacks on U.S. forces. But none of that changed what he had done in 2008. None of that brought her father back. She closed the file and pulled out her phone, opened the photo gallery, scrolled to a picture she had not looked at in months. It was from her high school graduation. She was in her cap and gown, smiling, and next to her was Wraith, big and strong and healthy. He had one arm around her shoulders. The other hand held a sign that read, Reeves Women Do Not Quit. Her father had made that sign for her mother when she was fighting breast cancer. She had beaten it, twice. The sign had become a family motto. Elena stared at the photo for a long time. Then she put the phone away, grabbed her gear, and headed for the armory. She had ammunition to prep, a weapon to zero, and a promise to keep. 18 hours later, Elena was on a C-130 Hercules, 30,000 feet over Afghanistan, breathing oxygen through a mask that tasted like rubber and fear. The cargo bay was dark except for red tactical lights that made everything look like it was dipped in blood. The temperature was minus 40 degrees. The air was thin enough to kill you if your pressure suit failed. Master Chief Lawson and his SEAL team sat on one side of the aircraft. Elena sat alone on the other. The CHATAC case was strapped between her legs. Her drag bag was secured to her back. She was rigged for a halo jump. High altitude, low opening. You fell for almost 4 miles before pulling your chute. At night, over mountains. It was statistically safer than it felt, but not by much. Lawson's voice crackled over the radio. All right, listen up. We land on the North Ridge. Rally point is grid November 6. From there, we move to the target on foot. Estimated time to compound is 90 minutes. Stay tight. Stay quiet. If you fall behind, redundant. Then we are not coming back for you. He looked directly at Elena when he said that last part. The loadmaster gave them the 2-minute warning. Elena checked her gear one last time. Helmet secure, goggles clear, oxygen flowing, altimeter working. She had done this before, twice in training, once in combat, but it never got easier. The moment before you stepped into the void was always the same. Your body screaming at you that this was insane. Your training screaming back that you had no choice. The ramp of the C-130 dropped open. The wind was a living thing howling and clawing at the aircraft. The night sky beyond was an ocean of stars, cold and indifferent. 30 seconds. Elena stood and moved to the edge. The SEALs were already lined up. Lawson was first. He gave her one last look. It was not encouragement. It was a test. He wanted to see if she would freeze. She stared back, did not blink. The light turned green. Lawson jumped. Then his team, one by one, disappearing into the darkness like stones into water. Elena was last. She stepped to the edge and looked down. 12,000 feet of nothing. Somewhere down there was a mountain, a compound, a target, and a man who killed her father. She thought about Wraith in his hospital bed, listening on the radio, waiting. One shot, one life, she whispered. Make it count. Then she stepped off the ramp and fell into the night. The free fall was violence, pure, absolute, overwhelming violence. Wind tore at her from every direction, trying to rip her suit apart, trying to spin her into an uncontrolled tumble that would end with her smeared across a mountainside like a bug on a windshield. The sound was deafening, a roar like standing behind a jet engine. Her cheeks rippled, her lips pulled back from her teeth. Spit froze on her face. Elena fought it, arched her back, spread her arms and legs, became a stable platform. This was what Wraith had taught her. The body wants to panic. The body wants to curl into a ball. But you are not your body. You are the thing that controls the body. You are the discipline that overrides the fear. The altimeter on her wrist spun backward like a slot machine, paying out in reverse. 30,000 feet, 20, 15. The numbers blurred. The mountain below grew larger, more real, more inevitable. This was the moment where doubt killed people, where hesitation turned into tragedy. Pull too early and the enemy radar might spot you. Pull too late and the ground would do what bullets could not. At 10,000 feet, she saw the mountain, a black silhouette against the stars. It was rushing up at her at terminal velocity, 120 miles per hour, fast enough to turn her into a red stain if she miscalculated, fast enough that if her chute malfunctioned, she would not even have time to scream. She thought about her father making this same jump 6 years ago, thought about Wraith in a hospital bed listening to this on a radio feed, thought about Lawson and his SEALs below her, probably betting on whether she would freeze or cry or quit. 4,000 feet, she pulled the ripcord. The parachute deployed with a crack like a gunshot. The harness jerked tight against her shoulders, nearly dislocating them. She gasped, the sudden deceleration knocking the wind out of her lungs. But the chute held. She was flying now instead of falling. Elena scanned the darkness through her night vision goggles. The world was a grainy green wash of jagged peaks and deep valleys. She spotted the SEALs below her, their chutes dark circles against the landscape. They were heading for a flat patch of ground on the north ridge. She adjusted her toggles and followed. The landing was hard. She hit the scree slope at an angle and rolled, trying to disperse the momentum. Rocks dug into her ribs. The CHATAC case slammed into her thigh, but she came to a stop in one piece and immediately went for her sidearm, scanning the area. Silence. No movement. No enemy contact. Sound off. Lawson's voice in her earpiece. Viper 1, good. Viper 2, good. Viper 3, good. Viper 4, good. There was a pause, then Lawson. Support? Elena keyed her mic. Support is on deck, moving to rally point. She gathered her chute and buried it under rocks, slung the CHATAC case over her shoulder, and started moving. The terrain was hell, loose scree that slid under her boots, boulders the size of cars, and a 40-degree incline that made every step a battle against gravity. The SEALs were already pulling ahead. Their longer legs ate up the distance. Elena pushed harder, but the 50-pound rifle felt like it was gaining weight with every meter. Her quadriceps burned. Sweat ran down her back despite the freezing temperature. Support! Close it up! Lawson's voice was impatient. You are lagging. Copy! Elena gasped. She forced her legs to move faster, tried to ignore the pain. But the gap was widening, 10 meters, 20. They reached a 6-foot ledge. The SEALs vaulted over it easily, one pulling the other up. When Elena arrived, she was alone at the bottom. The ledge was a foot higher than her head. Lawson looked down at her. His night vision goggles made him look like a demon. Need a hand, Tinkerbell? Elena did not answer. She jammed her boot into a crack in the rock, launched herself upward, and caught the edge with her fingertips. Her gloves scraped against stone. She hauled herself up, swung her leg over the lip, and rolled onto the plateau. Stood up immediately, breathing hard but face masked by her gear. Negative, Master Chief, she said. I am good. Lawson stared at her for a second longer than necessary, then turned away, eyes open. We are crossing into the red zone. The compound is just over this ridge. They moved forward in silence. The wind howled through the passes, sounding like distant screams. Elena fell into the rear guard position, scanning the cliffs above them with her thermal optic. Something felt wrong. The intelligence said this area was lightly patrolled, a blind spot in Hassan's defenses. But Elena's instincts were screaming. She scanned the ridgeline ahead, and there, a shadow that did not move with the shifting moonlight, too uniform, too still. "Hold," she whispered. "What now, Vance?" Lawson hissed. "Thermal anomaly at 11 o'clock high. 300 meters. I do not see anything." Lawson checked his own optics. "It is a rock heated by the sun earlier." "It is too uniform for a rock." Elena unslung her rifle. "I am telling you, it is a hide." "We do not have time for your paranoia, Vance. We are behind schedule because of the hike. Move out." Lawson signaled the team forward. They stepped out from the cover of the boulders onto an exposed trail leading toward the main gates. Elena did not move. She dropped to a knee, bringing her scope up. The shadow on the ridgeline was wrong. All wrong. The shape was too angular, the heat signature too faint, like someone had draped thermal blankets over a position to mask it from detection. She had seen hides like this before. In Iraq, in Syria, the kind of position a professional builds when he has all day to prepare and knows exactly where the enemy will walk. The rock shifted, just slightly, just enough. A barrel emerged from under the camouflage netting. 50 caliber, DSHK pattern, Russian-made, belt-fed, capable of punching through engine blocks and turning human beings into pink mist. "Contact front!" she screamed, breaking radio protocol, breaking operational silence, not caring about anything except getting the words out before the gunner found his trigger. But it was too late. The world was already ending. The night erupted in muzzle flashes. The DSHK heavy machine gun opened fire, and the mountain turned to hell. 12.7 millimeter rounds tore through the air at 2,000 feet per second, each one carrying enough kinetic energy to cut a man in half. The sound was not gunfire, it was thunder. It was the end of the world. Tracers painted bright lines across the darkness, beautiful and terrible, like laser beams from some alien weapon. The SEALs scattered, training and instinct taking over. They dove for cover, rolled, came up firing back with their suppressed rifles. But suppressed 5.56 rounds against a heavy machine gun position was like throwing rocks at a tank. The rounds walked across the trail where they had been standing seconds before. Sparks flew where bullets hit stone. The air filled with dust and the smell of cordite and the copper taste of adrenaline. Someone was screaming on the radio. Lawson was shouting orders, and Elena was already moving, already running, already knowing that everything had just gone wrong and the mission was falling apart before it even began. The world was noise and fire and death. The DSHK heavy machine gun ripped through the night like the hand of an angry god, tearing chunks out of the mountainside, turning solid rock into shrapnel. Elena hit the ground hard, rolling behind a boulder barely large enough to cover her. Bullets sparked off the stone inches from her head. She could feel the heat of them, could smell the copper and cordite. "Viper 3 is hit." The voice on the radio was Morrison, Lawson's second. His usual cocky tone was gone. "3 is down. Pop smoke. Get suppression on that ridge." Lawson's voice cut through the chaos like a knife. The Master Chief was doing what leaders did when everything went to hell. He was making decisions, turning panic into action, survival into tactics. The SEALs returned fire. Their suppressed carbines coughed rhythmically, sending 5.56 rounds uphill toward the DSHK position. But it was useless, like throwing pebbles at a tank. The machine gun had the high ground, superior firepower, and a gunner who knew exactly what he was doing. This was not a random ambush. This was a kill box, a carefully prepared death trap that the intelligence briefing had completely missed. Elena pressed her back against the boulder and forced herself to breathe, in through the nose, out through the mouth, slow and controlled. This was what Wraith had taught her. When the world is ending and your body wants to run or freeze or curl into a ball and cry, you breathe. You make yourself smaller inside the chaos. You find the quiet place where decisions happen. She closed her eyes for 2 seconds, visualized the terrain. They were on an exposed trail 50 meters from the main gate. The DSHK position was 300 meters upslope at 11 o'clock. Elevated, fortified, probably sandbags and a hardened bunker. The gunner had perfect fields of fire on their position, and behind them was nothing but open ground and a 1,000-foot drop into a valley that would kill them just as dead as the bullets. They were pinned, trapped, dying. "Command, This is Viper 1. We are in contact. Heavy fire. Requesting immediate close air support. Lawson was on the command net now, his voice professional despite the rounds chewing up the mountain around him. Negative Viper 1. The response from the Tactical Operations Center was immediate and cold. Anti-air batteries are active in your sector. No air support available. You need to break contact or push through. Break contact? We cannot even lift our heads. Lawson slammed his fist against the ground. The enemy fire intensified. RPGs began to streak down from the cliffs, exploding dangerously close to the SEAL positions. The dust and smoke choked the air, reducing visibility to almost nothing. Elena shifted position, using the chaos as cover to move. She low-crawled 3 meters to her left, where a slight depression in the ground gave her a better angle. She brought her rifle scope up and glassed the ridgeline. The thermal overlay showed her what she needed to see. The DSHK gunner was behind thick cover, only the barrel and muzzle flash visible. A frontal assault would be suicide. The SEALs could not get close enough without being cut down. But 20 meters to the left of the machine gun nest, Elena saw something else. A small vent in the rock face. Steam was venting from it in rhythmic puffs. A geothermal exhaust port. It meant there was a tunnel system inside the mountain. The compound had been built into the rock itself. Master Chief? Elena keyed her radio, her voice calm despite the bullets still snapping overhead. I have a potential infiltration point. 9 o'clock low from your position. Not now, Reeves. Lawson was focused on dragging Petty Officer Carlos Martinez to better cover. The medic had taken shrapnel to the leg. Arterial spray painted the rocks red. He was going to bleed out if they did not get him stabilized soon. Listen to me. Elena crawled forward another meter, getting a better view of the vent grate. There is an exhaust port near the base of the compound wall. It bypasses the main gate. I can get inside. Lawson peered around his cover, flinching as a bullet sparked inches from his face. He saw the grate, looked at it, then looked at the massive frames of his SEAL team. His eyes went to Elena. That thing is 12 inches wide, maybe 14. None of us can fit in there. We would get stuck before we got our shoulders in. I can fit. The firing paused for a split second as the enemy reloaded. In that heavy, ominous silence, Lawson stared at Elena, really looked at her for the first time since the mission began. He saw the small frame he had mocked on the tarmac at Bagram. The narrow shoulders, the lack of bulk, the physical traits he had dismissed as weaknesses. You? Lawson shook his head. You want to crawl into a pipe in an enemy compound with zero backup. I can flank them. Disable the heavy weapon or open the gate from the rear. It is suicide. You will be alone inside a fortified complex with 24 hostiles. If you get caught, you are dead, or worse. If we stay here, we are all dead, Elena countered. An RPG struck the rock face above them, showering them with debris. Martinez screamed. His leg was shredded. They had minutes, not hours. Make a decision, Master Chief. Do you want to die on this rock or do you want to win? Lawson gritted his teeth. The veins in his neck bulged. He hated this. Hated relying on support personnel. Hated sending anyone alone into the dark. But he was a pragmatist. He looked at Martinez bleeding out. Looked at the machine gun that would not stop firing. Looked at the 4 men in his team who were about to become names on a wall at Dam Neck. Cover her! Lawson swung his rifle back toward the ridge. Lay down everything you have. Reeves, you have 5 seconds. Move. The SEALs unleashed hell. A desperate wall of suppressive fire that turned the ridgeline into a storm of impacts and sparks. It would not last long. They were burning through ammunition they could not replace. But it gave Elena the window she needed. She did not hesitate. She shed her heavy pack, kept only her rifle, her sidearm, and a bandolier of ammunition. The Chaytak was too long, too bulky for what came next. She left it in the drag bag and started her sprint across the open ground. Bullets kicked up dirt at her heels. She ran in a zigzag pattern, changing direction every 3 steps the way Wraith had taught her. Predictable movement is dead movement, Ellie. Make them guess. She could hear his voice in her head as clear as if he was running beside her. Could almost feel his presence, watching from a hospital bed 7,000 miles away. Listening on the operations net, waiting to hear if she lived or died. She dove the last few feet and slammed into the rusted grate covering the exhaust vent. It was hot to the touch. The metal burned through her gloves. She kicked it once, twice. The bolts had rusted through after years of thermal expansion and mountain weather. The grate clattered inward into the darkness. Elena looked back one last time. Lawson was watching her through the smoke and chaos. His expression was unreadable behind the night vision goggles. But he nodded once, a short, sharp acknowledgement. Go! His voice in her earpiece was barely a whisper. Elena pushed herself into the dark, steaming hole. The heat hit her instantly. The smell of sulfur and old grease and something else. Something organic and rotten. This was not just a ventilation shaft. This was a geothermal exhaust bypass. The air inside was stagnant, hovering around 45 degrees Celsius, hot enough to cook her alive if she stayed in here too long. The darkness swallowed her whole. The moment Elena slid past the threshold of the grate, the world shrank to a 14-inch circle of rusted steel. The walls pressed in on her from all sides. Above, below, left, right. This was not a tunnel. This was a coffin, a steel tomb that stretched endlessly into the mountain's gut. She lay on her stomach, the metal floor already burning through her combat shirt. The only light came from the faint glow of her night vision goggles, turning everything into grainy green phosphor. Reeves, status! Lawson's voice crackled in her earpiece, distorted by the layers of rock and metal between them. I am in. Elena's own voice sounded loud in the confined space. Too loud. Like shouting in a library, it is tight. That was an understatement. The tunnel was so narrow that her shoulders brushed the sides with every movement. A standard SEAL operator with their broad chests and plate carriers would have wedged tight in the first meter. Even for Elena at 4 feet 11 and 105 pounds, it was a perfect fit. No room to turn around, no room to shift position. She could only go forward, or die trying. She reached back and grabbed the drag strap attached to her ankle. Her sidearm and spare magazines were tied to a quick-release webbing. The bundle was not as heavy as the SHATAC, but in this space, it felt like an anchor. She started to crawl, left elbow, right knee, right elbow, left knee. It was a rhythm, slow, agonizing. Every inch was a battle. The rivets inside the pipe dug into her forearms, shredding the fabric of her combat shirt, tearing skin. She could feel blood mixing with sweat. The dust on the floor of the pipe kicked up into a choking cloud with every movement. She could not cough. There was not enough air to waste on spasms. Moving, she grunted into the radio, then realized Lawson could not hear her anymore. The signal was gone, cut off by the layers of steel and stone. She was completely alone now. No backup, no orders, no voice in her ear telling her she was doing the right thing. 5 minutes in, 10 meters gained. The heat was seeping through her tactical pants, burning her knees. Sweat ran down her face, stinging her eyes, pooling in the seal of her goggles. Her heart hammered against her ribs, the sound amplified by the metal tube until it felt like a drum inside her chest. The walls seemed to be getting smaller, tighter, like the mountain itself was contracting, trying to squeeze her out like a splinter. Do not think about the tons of rock above you, Elena told herself. Do not think about the fact that you cannot turn around. Do not think about what happens if you get stuck. But she was thinking about it. How could she not? This was every claustrophobic nightmare made real. This was the thing humans feared on a primal level. Being trapped, buried alive, unable to move or breathe or scream. The walls were getting closer. She knew they were not. Knew it was impossible. Steel pipes did not shrink. But her mind was screaming that the diameter was decreasing, that the mountain was contracting around her like a throat swallowing. She thought about the embassy in Kabul when she was 8 years old, the mortar attack that brought the ceiling down on her. She had been playing in the hallway, skipping, humming a song her mother taught her. Then the world exploded. The ceiling came down in chunks of concrete and rebar. The lights went out. She was pinned under rubble, could not move her legs, could not see anything. Could only hear the screams of people dying in other rooms, could only smell dust and blood and burning plastic. She had been trapped for 43 minutes. It felt like 43 years. She screamed until her voice gave out, cried until she had no tears left, then just lay there in the dark, certain she was going to die alone under a collapsed building in a country that was not even hers. Then she heard his voice, muffled, distant, but unmistakable. Elena, baby girl, I am coming. Keep talking to me. Let me find you. Her father, Captain Marcus Reeves. He dug through 20 feet of rubble with his bare hands. Other soldiers tried to help, but he pushed them away. This was his daughter, his responsibility, his entire world under that concrete. He dug until his fingers bled, until his nails tore off, until he found her hand sticking out from under a slab. He pulled her out, held her, and said the words that became her mantra. Fear is just pain leaving the body, baby girl. Breathe through it. You are not trapped. You are just waiting to be free, and I will always come for you, always. But he was not coming now. He was dead. 6 years in the ground at Arlington National Cemetery, and she was alone in a steel coffin under a mountain in Afghanistan, trying to finish what he started. She breathed, slow and controlled, found the rhythm again. Left elbow, right knee. The heat was becoming unbearable. Her core body temperature was rising. The risk computer flashed a warning. Hyperthermia risk. She was cooking, literally cooking inside her own gear. She needed water, needed air, needed anything but this endless crawl through hell. Her vision started to blur, the edges going dark and fuzzy. Heat exhaustion was setting in. She had maybe 10 more minutes before she passed out. Then she would die here, become a mummy in a pipe, a skeleton that some future archaeologist would find and wonder about. No, not like this, not here. She pushed harder, ignored the pain, ignored the heat, ignored everything except forward motion. And then she saw it, a face in the darkness ahead of her. Her father, young and strong like he was before Afghanistan killed him. He was smiling, reaching out his hand. Come on, Ellie, just a little farther. You can make it. She knew it was not real, knew it was a hallucination brought on by heat and oxygen deprivation. But she reached for him anyway, reached for the ghost of the man who saved her once and could not save her now. The hallucination spoke again. You are not stuck, baby girl. You are compact. Think smaller. Elena blinked. The vision faded, but the words remained. Think smaller. She exhaled completely, made herself as small as possible, and kept crawling. The tunnel banked sharply to the right, a 90-degree turn with a radius so tight that a normal-sized person could not have made it. Elena stopped. Her breath hitched. The equipment bundle trailing from her ankle was rigid. If it got stuck in the bend, she was trapped. She could not go forward without it, could not back up to free it. She twisted her body, contorting her spine in ways that made her joints pop and crack. Reached back with her hand to grab the drag strap. She had to guide the bundle around the corner manually. Her fingers were slick with sweat and grime. Come on, you heavy bastard, she hissed through gritted teeth. The bundle snagged on a rivet. Panic spiked through her chest, cold and sharp despite the furnace heat. If she was stuck here, nobody would come for her. Lawson could not fit. The SEALs could not reach her. She would die of dehydration in the dark, just a few hundred feet from the enemy. A skeleton in a pipe. A cautionary tale about hubris and bad decisions. Calm down, physics. It is just physics. She exhaled fully, emptied her lungs until there was nothing left. It made her ribcage smaller. Granted her an extra half-inch of maneuvering room, she shimmied backward, risking getting wedged, until her hand could reach the snag. Her fingers found the tear in the bag where it had caught on metal. She ripped the fabric free. The sound was like a scream in the silence. She pulled again. The bundle slid around the bend. Elena gasped, inhaled the hot, stale air greedily. Her hands were shaking, her vision was spotting at the edges. She was on the verge of a panic attack, but she could not afford panic. Panic was death. You are not trapped, Ellie. You are just compact. Her father's voice this time. His old joke from when she was little and hiding in small spaces around their house. Playing hide and seek with a daughter who could fit anywhere. You are not stuck. You are just thinking too big. Think smaller. She thought smaller, became smaller inside her own mind, turned herself into nothing but forward motion. Left elbow, right knee, right elbow, left knee. The incline increased. She was climbing now, dragging her own body weight plus the equipment up a 20-degree slope. Her muscles burned with lactic acid. The heat was making her dizzy. Black spots danced in her vision like flies on the edge of her goggles. Suddenly, the tunnel opened up. Not into a room, just a slightly larger space where 3 vents converged. A junction box, maybe 3 feet wide. enough room for Elena to curl into a ball and relieve the tension in her spine. She pulled herself into it and just lay there for a moment, breathing, existing, grateful for space that did not crush her. Through the vent to her left, she heard voices, faint, distorted by metal and distance, but definitely human. Sound traveled strangely in these pipes, but this was close. Elena crawled toward the sound, moving with the slow deliberation of a predator. Through the slats of a vent cover 10 feet below her current position, she saw light, real light. Not the green phosphor of night vision, but actual electric illumination. She peered through the slats. Below was a locker room, metal benches, rows of lockers. Two men in military fatigues sitting on a bench, smoking cigarettes. Their rifles were propped against the wall, AK pattern, probably Chinese made. The men were relaxed, laughing about something. They had no idea that an American soldier was currently 10 feet above their heads, watching them through a vent like a ghost. Elena activated the audio amplifier on her earpiece and listened. The men were speaking Pashto. She did not speak the language fluently, but Wraith had made her learn enough to understand tactical communications. Key words filtered through. The Americans are pinned. Hassan is leaving through the back tunnel in 20 minutes. What about the men outside? Let them die. Rashid said this place is rigged to blow when they breach the main door. Elena's blood went cold. The compound was booby-trapped. The SEALs did not know. If they managed to break through the main gate, they would walk straight into an explosive trap that would kill them all. And Hassan was escaping. The primary target was running. She had maybe 20 minutes to stop him. But there was something else, something that made her hands clench into fists. The guard had said Rashid, Colonel Rashid Zahir. Her father's killer was here, in this compound, right now. She checked her wrist computer. No signal. The rock and steel were still jamming her radio. She could not warn Lawson about the trap, could not tell him Hassan was escaping. She would have to stop it herself, disable the explosives, prevent the escape, and somehow survive long enough to get word out. Elena looked at the two guards below. They were between her and the rest of the compound. She could go around, find another route, avoid contact, or she could go through them, eliminate the threat, take their gear, move faster. She made the decision in 2 seconds. Speed mattered now. Every minute, Hassan got closer to Pakistan. Every minute, her teammates were bleeding outside. She unscrewed the vent cover slowly, one screw at a time, catching each one in her gloved hand before it could fall and alert the guards. The metal was warm, the threads were old and corroded, but they gave way. The last screw came free. Elena set the grate aside quietly and positioned herself over the opening. 10-foot drop to a concrete floor. She could not bring her rifle, too bulky for close quarters. She drew her Sig Sauer P-23, checked the chamber. 15 rounds plus one in the pipe. 16 chances to not die. The guards were still talking, still smoking, still completely unaware. Elena dropped. She fell 10 feet and absorbed the impact with her entire body. Knees bent deep, left hand slapping the concrete to distribute the force. It was not a superhero landing. It was controlled falling. But it was quiet, just a dull thump no louder than a dropped book. The first guard looked up. His eyes went wide. He saw a small dark shape uncoiling from the floor. Saw the pistol coming up. Opened his mouth to shout. Elena did not give him the breath. She lunged forward, closing the distance in 2 steps. Used her forward momentum to drive her shoulder into his solar plexus. He was 6 inches taller and 80 pounds heavier. But he was sitting, off balance, unprepared. The impact drove the air from his lungs in a whoosh. Before he could recover, Elena brought the pistol up and fired twice into the soft gap of his armpit. The suppressed weapon coughed. Pft, pft. 2 subsonic 9mm rounds punched through muscle and found the axillary artery. The guard slumped instantly. His legs turned to jelly. Elena caught his weight and guided him down quietly. No clatter, no noise, just a man dying without fanfare. The second guard was already moving, bigger than the first, probably 6'2", with a thick build of someone who had spent years doing hard labor. His rifle was 3 feet away, too far, but he was fast. He spun toward Elena, saw his dead friend, saw the tiny woman with the gun. His hand went for the combat knife on his belt. Elena adjusted. This one was not going to go down easy. He was too big, too trained. She could see it in the way he moved. Balanced, controlled. This was a professional. She fired twice at center mass. Both rounds hit his plate carrier and stopped. Ceramic trauma plates. The impact staggered him but did not drop him. He closed the distance, swung the knife in a wide arc aimed at her throat. Elena ducked under the blade. It passed close enough that she felt the air displacement. She pivoted, brought her pistol up for a headshot. He batted her arm aside with his free hand. The pistol fired wild. The round sparked off a locker. Elena stumbled back. He kept coming, relentless. She could smell him, sweat and cigarettes in the metallic tang of violence. He swung the knife again. Lower this time, going for her stomach. Elena twisted. The blade caught her tactical vest and tore a long gash, but did not penetrate. She used his momentum against him, grabbed his knife wrist with her left hand, stepped in close, too close for him to use his size advantage, and slashed upward with the edge of her pistol grip, catching him under the chin. His head snapped back. She dropped her weight and swept his leg. He went down hard. The concrete cracked his skull, dazed him for half a second. That was all Elena needed. She jammed the muzzle of her pistol into the gap between his helmet and his jaw. Fired once. The fight was over. Elena stood over the bodies, her chest heaving, her hands shaking. She had just killed 2 men with a pistol in close quarters combat. Men who outweighed her by 100 pounds. Men who were trained and armed and ready. But they were dead and she was not. That was all that mattered in this business. Except it was not. Not really. Elena looked down at her hands. They were covered in blood. Not all of it hers. The first man she had shot through the armpit. Arterial spray had painted her gloves red. The second man she had executed at point-blank range. His blood was on her face, in her hair. She could taste copper on her lips. She had killed before, 3 times in Iraq, twice in Syria, always at distance, always through a scope where the target was just a heat signature and a ballistic calculation. Where pulling the trigger felt abstract, clinical, like solving a math problem. The target falls. You move to the next objective. You do not think about the person, about their family, about whether they had children or a wife, or dreams that would never happen now. But this was different. This was close. This was personal. She had looked into their eyes, smelled their fear, felt their bodies go limp as the life drained out of them. This was the kind of killing that stayed with you, that visited you in dreams, that made you wonder if there was a difference between a soldier and a murderer beyond the paperwork and the flag. Her father had done this. Close quarters combat in Fallujah during the second battle in 2004. He came home different after that deployment. Quieter, more distant. Her mother said he had nightmares, that he would wake up swinging, that sometimes he looked at his hands like they belonged to someone else. Elena understood now. Understood why he never talked about the things he did in those close quarters battles. Why he flinched when doors slammed. Why he drank a little more than he used to. Killing at distance was one thing. Killing close enough to see the light go out of their eyes was something else entirely. Something that changed you in ways you could not undo. She wanted to throw up, wanted to sit down and cry, wanted to scrub the blood off her hands and pretend this never happened. But she did not have time for weakness, did not have time for humanity. Hassan was escaping, the SEALs were dying, and she had a job to do. So she swallowed the bile, pushed the guilt down into a dark place where it could wait until later. Became the thing the mission needed her to be. Not a person, not a daughter, just a weapon pointed at the enemy. She dragged the bodies into a nearby janitor's closet. It was small, cramped. She had to fold them into unnatural positions to make them fit. Stacked them like cordwood behind mops and industrial cleaning supplies. The smell of bleach mixed with the smell of death. She wiped the blood from the floor with a rag she found in a bucket. It was not perfect. The concrete was porous. It had absorbed some of the blood. But in the dim emergency lighting, it would pass a casual inspection. Anyone who looked closely would see the evidence. But she was betting that in the chaos of an alarm and an attack, nobody would look that closely. Elena checked the dead guard's equipment more thoroughly now. The first one had a key card clipped to his belt. She took it. His radio was still clipped to his shoulder. She took that too and listened to the chatter. Pashto mixed with Arabic, voices barking orders, something about the Americans breaching soon, something about the tunnel. She caught the word Rashid again. Zahir was giving commands. He was here, somewhere in this compound. The man who killed her father was breathing the same air she was breathing. She found a spare magazine for an AK-47 on the second guard. She could not use it for her pistol, but maybe she could trade it or use it as a distraction later. She also found something else, a folded piece of paper in the guard's pocket. She opened it. It was a hand-drawn map of the compound, crude but detailed. It showed the tunnel system, the server room she was about to enter, and something else, a room marked with a skull symbol. Next to it, someone had written in Arabic script. She could not read Arabic well, but she recognized enough to make out two words. Detonation control. The booby trap. This map showed where the explosives were triggered from. If she could get there, she could disable them. Save the SEALs from walking into a death trap. But it was 3 levels down, deep in the compound. She would have to fight through who knew how many guards to reach it. One problem at a time. First, cut the power. Then worry about the rest. She tucked the map into her vest and left the closet. She looked at the vent she had come through, 10 feet up. No way to reach it without climbing, but she did not need to go back. She needed to go deeper, find the explosives, find Hassan, find Zahir. Elena moved to the door of the locker room and pressed her ear against it. Silence on the other side. She swiped the stolen key card over the electronic lock. The light turned green. The magnetic bolts disengaged with a soft click. She pushed the door open slowly, weapon up, eyes scanning. A corridor stretched before her, long and narrow, concrete walls, fluorescent lights, doors on either side. This was the interior of the compound. The guts of the place. Her father had died trying to breach 6 years ago. She was walking in his footsteps now, finishing what he could not. Elena moved down the corridor, silent, controlled. Every door she passed could hide an enemy. Every corner could be an ambush. But she did not have time for caution. She had to move fast. She reached a blast door at the end of the corridor. Heavy steel, reinforced. The kind of door that could withstand explosives. Next to it was another keycard reader. Elena swiped the stolen card, prayed it had clearance. The light turned green. The hydraulic locks hissed. The door began to open. Elena stepped through into a massive room. Server racks, rows and rows of black monoliths humming with electronics. The air was cold here, aggressively air-conditioned to keep the computers from overheating. After the furnace heat of the vent, it felt like stepping into a freezer. At the far end of the room, behind a wall of bulletproof glass, was a security operations center. Monitors covered the walls. Live feeds from cameras positioned all over the compound. And on the screens, Elena could see her teammates. The SEALs were still pinned down outside, still taking fire. Martinez was on the ground. Lawson was working on him, trying to stop the bleeding with a tourniquet and pressure bandages that were already soaked through. They were dying, and she was the only one who could save them. Elena spotted what she needed. In the corner of the server room was a caged enclosure, the power distribution unit. Thick orange cables ran from it to every part of the facility. Cut the power and the automated sentry guns would die. The SEALs could breach, but cutting power would also alert every guard in the compound that something was wrong. Speed or stealth, she could not have both. Elena chose speed. She moved through the server aisles, keeping low, using the equipment racks for cover. A patrol was coming. 2 men. She pressed herself against a server rack. The heat was intense. The men walked past close enough to touch, but they did not look down. They moved on. Elena waited 10 seconds, then continued to the power cage. The padlock was industrial grade, hardened steel. She could not pick it, did not have time. She pulled out her bolt cutters, jammed the jaws around the shackle, squeezed with everything she had. Her shoulders screamed. The damaged one from the parachute landing sent white-hot pain down her arm. But the lock was tougher than her. It was not going to break. She needed another approach. Elena looked at the cage itself. Chain-link fence, strong but not impenetrable. She pulled out her combat knife and started working on the fence wire. Cutting, bending, creating a gap large enough to squeeze through. It took 3 minutes. 3 minutes where any guard could have walked around the corner and seen her. But luck was a finite resource and she had just enough. She slipped through the gap, Inside the cage, the air hummed with electricity. High voltage warnings were posted everywhere. Touch the wrong thing, and she would be cooked from the inside out. Elena found the main bus bar, a thick copper plate that distributed power to the entire facility. She pulled out a block of C4 plastic explosive from her vest, molded it onto the bus bar, pressed a detonator into the soft white material, set the timer. 30 seconds. That would give her enough time to get clear. Or it should, if nothing went wrong. She turned to climb back through the fence gap and stopped. There was a technician standing right in front of the cage, staring directly at her. He was young, maybe 25, wearing a white lab coat and holding a tablet. For a frozen moment, neither of them moved. They just looked at each other, him trying to process what he was seeing, her calculating how fast she could draw her pistol and fire before he screamed. He dropped his tablet. It shattered on the floor. "Intruder!" he screamed at the top of his lungs. "Security! Power room!" The guard who had been patrolling with him came running, saw Elena in the cage, raised his submachine gun. Elena did not have 30 seconds anymore. She did not even have 3. She pulled the manual detonator override, squeezed the trigger. The world turned white. The explosion was not large by military standards, maybe half a pound of C4, but inside the enclosed power cage, the concussion was massive. The blast wave slammed Elena against the chain-link fence, knocked the air from her lungs. The sound was a physical thing, a hammer that hit her entire body at once. Then darkness. Every light in the facility died. The hum of the server stopped. The air conditioning cut out. Total blackout. Emergency red lights flickered on 3 seconds later, bathing the destroyed server room in hellish crimson. Elena lay on the floor of the cage, her ears ringing so loud she could not hear anything else. She shook her head, tried to clear the foam, checked her limbs. Everything still attached, bruised, battered, but functional. She stood up. The technician was gone. Runaway or dead, she did not know. The guard was on the ground. The blast had thrown him into a server rack. He was not moving. Alarms started blaring, klaxons and sirens that cut through even the ringing in her ears. She had maybe 60 seconds before every hostile in the compound converged on this position. Elena climbed through the fence gap and started running. Behind her, she could hear boots on concrete, voices shouting, the enemy was coming. But outside the compound, the automated sentry guns had stopped firing. The power was dead. The SEALs had their window. Now she just had to survive long enough to open the gate and let them in. Elena stumbled through the smoke-filled server room. The explosion had turned the air into a toxic soup of burning plastic and ozone. Every breath hurt. Her lungs felt like they were on fire. The emergency lights cast everything in blood-red shadow. Sparks rained down from destroyed electrical systems. Some of the server racks were burning. The fire suppression system tried to activate, but with no power, the sprinklers just dribbled weakly. She could hear them coming. Boots on concrete, lots of them. The entire security force was converging on her position. She had maybe 30 seconds before they surrounded the server room and trapped her inside. She needed an exit, needed it now. Elena looked up. The ventilation duct she had crawled through was too far above her. No way to reach it without climbing gear. But there were other ducts, other vents. The compound was riddled with them. She scanned the ceiling through the smoke and found what she needed. A return air vent, larger than the exhaust pipe she had used to enter, maybe 20 inches square, still small, but climbable. The door to the server room burst open. 3 guards rushed in, flashlights cutting through the smoke, weapons up. They were shouting in Pashto, searching, hunting. Elena was already moving. She jumped onto a server rack, used it like a ladder, climbed up the hot metal chassis. Her burned hands screamed in protest, but she ignored them, reached the ceiling, kicked the vent cover loose. It fell with a clang that made the guards spin toward her position. There, one of them pointed, on the ceiling. They opened fire. AK rounds chewed up the server racks below her. Sparks and shrapnel filled the air. Elena pulled herself into the vent and started crawling, fast as she could. The duct was bigger than the exhaust pipe, but it was still tight, still crushing, still a coffin. But at least this one had an escape. Behind her, she heard the guards trying to follow, heard one of them boost another up toward the vent. But they were too big, too bulky with their gear. They could not fit. She heard cursing, heard them radioing for backup, heard the frustration in their voices. Elena crawled deeper into the duct system, following the airflow. The smoke from the server room fire was getting sucked into the ventilation system. It poured past her like a river of gray poison. She pulled her shirt up over her nose and mouth, tried to filter it, but it was not enough. She was coughing, choking. Her eyes watered so badly she could barely see. She kept crawling. Had to. Stopping meant dying. The duct branched, left or right. She chose right because the airflow was stronger in that direction. Stronger flow meant bigger ducts. Bigger ducts meant eventual exit. The duct opened into a larger vertical shaft, some kind of main air return that fed into the mechanical room. Elena looked down. It was a straight drop, 20 feet, maybe more. But at the bottom she could see a grill, light coming through it. And beyond the light she heard voices, not guards, something else. Calmer, more controlled. She positioned herself over the shaft and began to descend. There were no handholds, no ladder, just the corners of the sheet metal duct itself. She braced her back against one wall and her feet against the opposite wall. Chimney climbing, the same technique she had used in the elevator shaft during training. Slow, controlled. Her legs shook with the effort. The burned skin on her hands tore open again. Fresh blood made the metal slippery. She descended inch by inch, finally reached the grill at the bottom, looked through it. Below was some kind of office or command center, desks with computers, maps on the walls, and 4 men in the room. 3 wore the same fatigues as the guards she had killed, but the 4th man was different. He wore a Pakistani army uniform, colonel's rank insignia, and even through the grill, even in the poor lighting, Elena recognized his face from the photos in the briefing. Colonel Rashid Zahir. Her father's killer was 10 feet below her, talking on a satellite phone. His back was to the vent. He had no idea she was there. Elena's hand went to her pistol. She could shoot him through the grill. Right now, end this. Avenge her father. Complete the secondary objective. But there were 3 other armed men in the room, and she only had 14 rounds left in her magazine. Even if she killed Zahir, the others would kill her. And then the SEALs would breach into the booby-trapped compound and die. Hassan would escape. The mission would fail. Revenge or duty? Commander Hayes had asked her to choose. Elena chose duty. She forced her hand away from the pistol, forced herself to keep moving, crawled past the grill, found another duct, followed it, put distance between herself and the temptation to throw everything away for one shot. She would get him later, after the mission was complete. Then she would find Zahir, and she would make him answer. But not yet, not like this. Elena kept crawling through the ducts until she found what she needed. An exit vent that opened onto a maintenance corridor. She kicked it open, dropped down, found herself in a narrow hallway lit by emergency lights. Pipes ran along the ceiling. The walls were bare concrete. This was the guts of the compound. The utility spaces where workers came to fix things, and nobody else bothered to look. She pulled out the crude map she had taken from the guard, oriented herself. The detonation control room was 2 levels down. She needed stairs, or an access ladder, something. She found it 50 feet down the corridor. A metal hatchway in the floor with a warning sign in Arabic and English. Confined space. Authorized personnel only. She opened the hatch. A ladder descended into darkness. She climbed down into the black. The ladder descended into absolute darkness. Elena climbed down rung by rung, her burned hands screaming with every grip. The metal was cold now, a relief after the furnace heat of the ventilation system. But cold also meant deep. She was going into the guts of the mountain, the parts of the compound that never saw sunlight, the parts where prisoners were kept and secrets were buried. 20 rungs down, her boots hit concrete. She activated her night vision goggles, and the world turned green. She was in a tunnel. Narrow, low ceiling. Pipes ran along the walls carrying water and sewage, and who knew what else. The air smelled like mold and decay. This was not a place meant for people. This was infrastructure, the hidden veins that kept the compound alive. Elena pulled out the crude map she had taken from the dead guard. The paper was stained with his blood. She traced her route with one finger. 2 levels down from the server room. That put her at sublevel 3. The detonation control room was marked on the map as being at the end of this tunnel, maybe 100 meters straight ahead. She started walking. Every step echoed. The sound bounced off the concrete walls and came back to her like a ghost following too close. She moved slowly, weapon up, eyes scanning, Every shadow could hide an enemy. Every turn could be an ambush. But the tunnel was empty, silent except for the drip of water and the distant hum of machinery. 50 meters in, she found the first body. He was slumped against the wall, a guard. His AK-47 lay across his lap. At first, Elena thought he was sleeping. Then she saw the blood, dark and thick, pooled around him. His throat had been cut, ear to ear, professional, quiet, the kind of kill that special operations soldiers made when they needed someone dead without noise. But the SEALs were still outside. They had not breached yet. So who killed this man? Elena knelt beside the body. It was still warm. This happened recently, within the last 10 minutes. She checked his gear. His radio was missing. His sidearm was gone. Someone had stripped him and left him here like garbage. She heard a sound behind her, a scrape of boot on concrete. Elena spun, bringing her pistol up. The tunnel behind her was empty, but she knew she had heard something. Someone was following her, someone who moved quietly, someone who knew how to hunt. "Show yourself," her voice echoed down the tunnel. "I know you are there." Silence. Then a figure stepped out of the shadows 30 feet back. A man, tall, broad shoulders. He wore the same fatigues as the dead guard, but his face was covered by a tactical balaclava. And the weapon in his hands was not an AK. It was an M4 carbine, American-made, the kind of rifle SEALs carried. But this was not one of Lawson's men. Elena could tell by the way he moved, by the way he held the weapon. This was someone else, someone who did not belong here any more than she did. "Who are you?" Elena kept her pistol trained on his center mass. The man tilted his head, studying her, then he lowered his weapon. Not all the way, just enough to show he was not an immediate threat. When he spoke, his voice was muffled by the balaclava, but the accent was unmistakable. British, educated, the kind of voice that came from private schools and officer training. "I could ask you the same question, love, but I suspect we are on the same side, more or less." Elena did not lower her weapon. "You are not SEAL. You are not Army. Who sent you?" "Does it matter?" The man gestured at the dead guard. "We both want the same thing. Hassan dead or captured, Zahir neutralized. The difference is my people do not care which one happens. Your people want them alive for interrogation. My people just want them gone." MI6, Elena realized. British intelligence. "You are here to clean up your own mess. Zahir was one of yours, was he not? A double agent who went bad." The man was silent for a moment. Then he chuckled. A dry, humorless sound. "Not bad. Smart girl. Yes, Zahir was ours for about 6 months. Then he went native, started playing both sides. Now he is a liability. My job is to make sure he does not leave this mountain alive. He is mine." Elena's voice was ice. "He killed my father. I am the one who puts him down." The man shook his head. "Sorry, love, but you do not get first claim on this one. I have been tracking Zahir for 2 years. I was in Islamabad when he sold out a safe house and got 3 of my colleagues beheaded. I was in Karachi when he fed false intel that got an entire Ranger platoon wiped out. Your father is one name on a very long list of people this bastard has killed. So no, he is mine." They stared at each other across the tunnel. 2 killers with the same target and incompatible objectives. Elena knew she should just shoot him, eliminate the competition, finish her mission without interference. But something stopped her. Maybe it was professional respect. Maybe it was the fact that they were both alone in a hostile compound with limited ammunition and zero backup. Or maybe it was just exhaustion. She was so tired of killing, so tired of death. "Truce?" The British operative lowered his weapon completely. "We both want Hassan and Zahir dead. Let us work together until we find them. Then we can argue about who gets the kill shot." Elena lowered her pistol, against every instinct screaming at her to trust no one. "Truce, but if you get in my way, I will drop you." "Likewise." The man extended his hand. "Call me Wraith." Elena's blood went cold. "What did you say?" "My call sign." "Wraith. Why, does that mean something to you?" Her mind was racing. Wraith was her mentor's call sign. Gunnery Sergeant Thomas Sullivan. But he was in a hospital bed in Maryland dying of cancer. He could not be here. Could not be this man. Unless this was not about call signs. Unless this was about something else. Elena remembered what Wraith had told her in the hospital. About the mission in 2008. About being there when her father died. About carrying the guilt for 6 years. "What is your real name?" Elena asked. The man paused. then slowly pulled off his balaclava. Elena's legs almost gave out. The face looking back at her was younger than Wraith, maybe 40, dark hair going silver at the temples, sharp features carved by hard years and hard places. But the eyes, those pale blue eyes were identical to Gunnery Sergeant Thomas Sullivan's eyes. The same intensity, the same thousand-yard stare that came from seeing too much death. And the shape of the jaw, the set of the shoulders, the way he held himself like a coiled spring ready to unleash violence. This was not Gunnery Sergeant Thomas Sullivan. This was his son, Captain James Sullivan, British Special Air Service. The son Wraith almost never talked about. The son who joined the British military instead of the Marines because he grew up in London with his mother after his parents divorced. The son who became one of the most decorated special operations soldiers in the United Kingdom without ever once asking his famous father for help or advice. The son who had spent 20 years proving he was not riding on anyone's coattails. And if James was here, that meant Wraith had sent him, had called in his own estranged son to back up Elena on the mission his cancer would not let him finish himself, had reached across an ocean in 20 years of complicated family history to protect the girl he had trained, the girl who had become more of a daughter to him than a student. Your father sent you. Elena's voice cracked. She felt the weight of it, felt what it must have cost Wraith to make that call, to ask for help from a son he barely knew anymore. Wraith told you to come. James nodded slowly. His jaw was tight. Like this was hard for him too. He called me 3 days ago. First time we had spoken in 2 years, maybe longer. I do not keep track anymore. He told me about the mission, about Hassan, about Zahir, and about you. He said you were the daughter he never had. Said you were walking into hell alone and needed someone watching your back. Someone who understood what it meant to finish what your father started. James paused, looked down at his hands that looked so much like Wraith's hands, big, scarred, built for breaking things. He also told me he was dying, that he had maybe a week left, that this would be his last mission even though he could not be there to pull the trigger himself. He said he needed to know that someone he trusted was watching over you. And despite everything, despite the years of silence and the distance between us, he trusted me, his son, to do this one last thing for him. Elena felt tears burning in her eyes. Did he tell you about my father? About what happened in 2008? Every word. James met her eyes. He told me he was there when Captain Marcus Reeves died, that he tried to save him but could not, that he has carried the guilt every day since, and that you were trying to finish what your father started, just like I am trying to. He cleared his throat. My father was not a perfect man. He was absent for most of my childhood, chose the Corps over his family more times than I can count. But he was a good teacher, and he chose his students well. If he believed in you enough to send me halfway around the world to watch your back, then you must be something special. Elena did not know what to say. The weight of it all was crushing. 2 generations of warriors, 2 fathers who died or were dying, 2 children left behind trying to prove something, trying to honor something, trying to finish something that maybe could never really be finished. Thank him for me. When you see him again. Elena forced the words out past the lump in her throat. James's face darkened. Pain flickered in those pale blue eyes. I will not be seeing him again. He has maybe a week left. 2 if he is stubborn, which he is. The doctors wanted to put him in a coma, manage his pain, let him drift away peacefully. He refused. Said he needed to be conscious for this, needed to hear the mission through to the end. So he is in that hospital bed right now, in agony, listening to us on the operations net. This is his last mission, his last chance to make something right. And he wants to hear it happen, wants to know that we finished what he could not. The words hit Elena like a physical blow. Wraith was dying in pain just so he could listen to this mission, just so he could hear that she survived, that she succeeded, that his teaching had not been wasted. Then we better not disappoint him. Elena checked her ammunition. Her hands were steadier now. Purpose did that, gave you something to focus on besides the fear and the pain. 14 rounds left in her pistol. She looked at James. What do you have? 6 magazines for the M4. 30 rounds each. 180 rounds total. 2 fragmentation grenades. 1 flashbang. And this. James pulled out a knife from a sheath on his belt. It was not a standard issue blade. It was custom. The handle was worn smooth from years of use. The blade was dark, non-reflective, designed for killing quietly. He held it up so Elena could see the inscription along the spine. Sullivan, USMC, Vietnam 1968. That was Wraith's knife from his first deployment. Before I was born, he gave it to me when I passed SAS selection. Said I had earned the right to carry it. Said it had saved his life more times than he could count. James sheathed the blade. If we are going to do this, we do it his way. Fast, quiet, surgical, no mercy for the enemy, no hesitation. One shot, one life. Make it count. Elena finished the phrase. Wraith's mantra. The words he had drilled into her head for 3 years. The words that had become her compass. James smiled. It was a sad smile. A smile that knew too much about loss. Exactly. Fast and quiet. We disable the explosives. Then we find Hassan and Zahir. You take Hassan, I take Zahir. And if they are together, then we both shoot and sort it out after. They moved down the tunnel together. Two ghosts in the dark. Elena took point because she was smaller and quieter. James covered the rear because he had the bigger weapon. They moved in silence, communicating with hand signals, a language of violence that both of them spoke fluently. The tunnel opened into a larger chamber, the detonation control room. It was exactly what the map promised, a space carved out of solid rock. Cables ran everywhere, bundles of red and yellow wire feeding into a control panel that looked like it belonged in a 1980s action movie. Lights blinked, switches waited to be thrown. And in the center of it all was a timer, counting down. 42 minutes. 42 minutes until the compound exploded and took everyone inside with it. The SEALs, Elena, James, everyone. Can you disarm it? James asked. Elena stared at the panel. She was a sniper, not a demolitions expert, but she had gone through the basic EOD course that all combat armed soldiers took. Knew enough to recognize a dead man's switch when she saw one. This was not a bomb you could just cut wires on. This was a system designed to blow if you tampered with it wrong. No, but I can delay it. She pulled out her knife and started carefully stripping wire insulation. If I bypass the timer and route the trigger through this relay, I can give us maybe 2 more hours. Enough time to clear the compound and get out. Do it. Elena worked fast. Her hands were steady despite the burns and cuts. This was just another problem to solve. Just another equation to balance. Red wire to positive terminal. Yellow wire to ground. Bypass the clock circuit. Reroute through the backup power supply. It took 5 minutes. 5 minutes where any wrong move would have turned them both into vapor. The timer stopped counting down, then reset. 2 hours and 14 minutes. Done. Elena stepped back. We have time. Then let us use it. James moved to the door on the far side of the chamber. This should lead to the lower vehicle bay. If Hassan is escaping through the back tunnel like those guards said, he will be loading into a truck down there. They opened the door and found themselves in a concrete stairwell. Bare bulbs provided minimal light. The stairs went up and down. Up led back to the main compound. Down led deeper into the mountain. To the vehicle bay. To Hassan. They went down 3 flights. The stairwell opened into a massive underground garage. It was huge, easily big enough for 20 vehicles. But only 3 were here now. SUVs, black, armored. Their engines were running. Exhaust fumes filled the air. Men were loading equipment into the backs. Weapons, ammunition, boxes marked with biohazard symbols. And standing next to the lead vehicle, giving orders were 2 men Elena would have recognized anywhere. Khalid Hassan, the architect, arms dealer, mass murderer, the man who had supplied the weapons that killed thousands. He was smaller in person than his photos suggested, maybe 5'8", soft around the middle. He wore expensive clothes and gold rings, looked more like a banker than a terrorist. And next to him, wearing a Pakistani army uniform, was Colonel Rashid Zahir, her father's killer. Elena's hand tightened on her pistol. Every muscle in her body screamed to start shooting, to empty her magazine into Zahir's face, to make him pay for what he did. But there were 8 guards between her and the targets. 8 men with AK-47s who would cut her down before she made it 3 steps. James put a hand on her shoulder. Not yet, we need a plan. The plan is I kill them. With 14 rounds against 8 guards plus 2 targets, The math does not work. We wait, let them load up, follow them into the tunnel, ambush them where there is no cover. Elena wanted to argue, wanted to just charge in and die trying if that was what it took. But James was right. Suicide was not justice, it was just waste. They watched from the shadows of the stairwell as Hassan's men finished loading the vehicles. Watched as Hassan climbed into the back seat of the lead SUV. Watched as Zahir said something to the guards and then got into the passenger seat. The convoy started moving, heading for the tunnel exit, heading for Pakistan, heading for escape. Not today, Elena whispered. She and James moved fast, circling around the edge of the garage, staying in the shadows. The guards were focused on the vehicles. Nobody was watching the perimeter. Basic security failure. But Hassan was arrogant, thought he was safe in his mountain fortress, thought the Americans were still pinned outside. He was wrong. Elena and James reached the tunnel entrance just as the convoy passed through. They sprinted after the vehicles. The tunnel was wide, 2 lanes, lights strung along the ceiling every 20 meters. The SUVs were not moving fast, maybe 30 kilometers per hour. The tunnel floor was rough. They could not risk damaging the vehicles. James pulled out a fragmentation grenade. I can disable the rear vehicle, block the tunnel, trap them. Do it. He pulled the pin, counted, threw. The grenade bounced once, rolled under the rear SUV, detonated. The explosion was massive in the confined space. The rear vehicle lurched sideways, tires shredded, the frame twisted. It crashed into the tunnel wall and stopped, blocked the entire width of the passage. The other 2 vehicles slammed on their brakes. Men poured out, shouting, weapons up. They had no idea where the attack came from, no idea how many attackers there were. Classic ambush psychology. Confusion is a weapon. James opened fire with the M4. 3-round bursts, controlled, precise. 2 guards went down. 3. The rest scattered for cover behind the vehicles. Elena moved to the left side of the tunnel, found a small alcove, probably meant for emergency equipment. She posted up there, pistol out, waiting for targets. A guard rounded the corner. She shot him twice. Center mass. He fell. Another one. She dropped him with a headshot. James was working the right side. His M4 barked steadily. Every burst found flesh. He was good. Better than good. SAS training, the best special operations force in the world. He moved like water, flowed from cover to cover. Never stopped, never hesitated. But there were too many. The guards were rallying, returning fire. Bullets sparked off the tunnel walls. Ricochets screamed past Elena's head. One caught her in the shoulder. Not a direct hit, just a fragment. But it punched through her vest and buried itself in muscle. She gasped, dropped to one knee. The pain was white hot. Reeves, James saw her go down. He threw his last flashbang. The tunnel turned into day. Everyone went blind. He sprinted to her position, grabbed her arm, pulled her deeper into the alcove. You hit? Shoulder. Elena gritted her teeth. Flesh wound. I am good. You are not good. You are bleeding. I said I am good. She forced herself to stand, checked her pistol. 9 rounds left. Where are the targets? Middle vehicle. Still inside, using the guards as cover. Then we need to get through the guards. James reloaded his M4. Final magazine. After this, I am Winchester. We need to make this count. The guards were advancing, moving tactically, bounding Overwatch. These were not amateurs. They had training, discipline. They were going to flank the alcove and overwhelm through superior numbers. Elena made a decision that would define everything that came after. She pulled off her tactical vest, the one that was already torn and bloody and shredded by bullets and fragments, attached it to the sling from her empty rifle, then threw it out into the tunnel like a decoy, like bait. The guards saw movement, saw what looked like a body rolling out from cover, opened fire immediately. Dozens of rounds shredded the vest, tore it apart, while they were focused on that false target, while they were wasting ammunition on fabric and Kevlar. James leaned out from his position and fired his last magazine. Controlled bursts, each one finding flesh, dropping targets. 2 more guards fell, then 3. Then the M4 went dry. Click. Empty. James dropped the useless weapon and drew his sidearm. A Browning high power, 13 rounds, he made each one count. 4 guards left. plus Hassan and Zahir somewhere behind the armored SUV. The middle SUV's engine roared to life. Someone was trying to escape, trying to ram through the disabled vehicle blocking the tunnel. Metal scraped against metal. Sparks flew like fireflies. The SUV pushed harder. The wreckage shifted slightly but would not budge. Too heavy, too tangled. The escape route was blocked. The passenger door of the middle SUV opened. Colonel Rashid Zahir stepped out. He was not armed, or at least his hands were empty. Visible. He was holding a satellite phone to his ear, calling someone, calling for backup, calling for extraction, calling for the reinforcements that would arrive in maybe 5 minutes and turn this from an ambush into a massacre. Him. Elena pointed with her pistol. Blood was running down her arm from the shoulder wound, dripping off her fingers, but her hand was steady. That one is mine. James nodded. He understood. This was personal. This was the mission within the mission. The real reason Elena had volunteered to crawl through a pipe into hell. He looked at Hassan, still cowering in the back seat of the SUV. I will handle Hassan on 3. 1, 2. Elena did not wait for 3. Could not wait. The rage was too strong, the need too overwhelming. 6 years of grief compressed into this single moment. She broke from cover and ran. Not tactically, not smart, just ran. Straight at Zahir with her pistol up and murder in her heart. Zahir saw her coming, dropped the phone. It shattered on the concrete, went for his sidearm. A Makarov 9mm, Russian-made, the weapon of choice for intelligence officers who operated in Pakistan. His hand was fast, trained, but Elena was faster. She fired 3 times as she ran. She had all center mass, all hitting the Pakistani army uniform he wore. He was wearing body armor under it, ceramic plates. The round stopped him, staggered him, knocked the wind out of his lungs, but did not drop him. He stumbled back against the vehicle, hands still going for the Makarov, still trying to draw, still trying to fight. Elena closed the distance, 15 feet, 10, 5. She could see his face clearly now, every line, every scar. The face from her father's mission photos, the face from her nightmares, the face that had haunted her for 6 years. He was older than in the photos, gray at the temples, weathered by hard years and hard places. But it was him, absolutely him. You, Zahir's eyes widened in recognition. His hand stopped reaching for the pistol. He just stared at her. You are Marcus's daughter. You have his eyes, the same gray, the same determination. And you have his blood on your hands. Elena aimed for his head. Center of the forehead, between the eyes, the kill shot. The one that would end this. That would balance the scales. That would let her sleep at night, knowing justice had been served. Her finger tightened on the trigger. Pressure building. 1/2 pound more and the firing pin would drop. 1/2 pound between vengeance and emptiness. Wait. Zahir held up one hand, palm out, not defensive, not pleading, just open, honest. You do not understand. I tried to save him, your father, Captain Marcus Reeves, 1st Battalion, 75th Rangers. I tried to warn him about the IEDs that Hassan had planted, but Hassan intercepted my message, killed my courier. Your father walked into that compound thinking it was safe, thinking he had good intelligence. He was wrong. And when the explosion happened, when the ceiling came down, I was the one who pulled him out of the rubble. I held him while he died. You are lying, Elena's voice shook. You set the trap. You killed him. No. Zahir's voice was steady, calm, like a man who had rehearsed this confession in his head 1,000 times. Hassan set the trap. I was trying to stop it. I had been feeding intelligence to the Americans for 6 months by that point, trying to undermine Hassan from the inside, trying to save lives. But Hassan suspected me, tested me. Your father was the test, and I failed. Zahir's eyes were wet now, actual tears running down his weathered face. Marcus Reeves died in my arms. His last words were for you. He said, tell my daughter Elena that I love her. Tell her to be strong. Tell her. And then he was gone. I have carried those words for 6 years. I have tried to atone. Every piece of intelligence I gave the CIA after that. Every operation I helped plan. Every terrorist I helped kill. I did it in his name. In your father's name. trying to balance the scales, trying to make his death mean something. Elena's hand was shaking now, the pistol wavering. She wanted to pull the trigger, wanted it so badly her teeth hurt from clenching her jaw. But doubt was creeping in, terrible poisonous doubt. What if he was telling the truth? What if her father's killer was not Zahir but Hassan? What if she had been hunting the wrong man? Behind Zahir, the rear door of the SUV opened. Khalid Hassan stepped out. The architect, the arms dealer, the man who had supplied weapons that killed thousands. He was holding an AK-47. Barrel pointed at Elena's back. She could not see him, was too focused on Zahir. But James saw and moved. "Contact rear!" James shouted, raising his pistol. Firing. Time slowed to a crawl. Elena heard James's warning, started to turn, saw Hassan bringing the AK up, saw his finger on the trigger, saw the muzzle flash. She made a choice, not revenge, not hate, just tactics, just survival. She spun away from Zahir, dropped into a crouch, fired twice at Hassan. Both rounds hit him in the chest. The kinetic energy lifted him off his feet, slammed him back against the SUV. He slid down the armored door and crumpled. The AK clattered from his hands. Blood spread across his expensive shirt. Khalid Hassan, the architect, the man who had killed thousands, dead in a tunnel under a mountain, killed by a woman he never saw coming. Behind Elena, a gunshot rang out. Different sound, different weapon. She felt the impact before she heard it. Something punched into her lower back, just above her left hip. The round had found the gap in her vest, the space between the plates, went through skin and muscle, maybe nicked her kidney, maybe worse. She could not tell yet. The shock was too overwhelming. Her legs gave out, not because she decided to kneel, but because her nervous system simply stopped communicating with her lower body. She fell hard. Her pistol slipped from her fingers, skittered across the concrete, out of reach. The tunnel was spinning. Her vision was narrowing. Tunnel vision within a tunnel. She turned her head, saw Zahir standing there 5 feet away, the Makarov in his hand, smoke curling from the barrel. His face was a mask of regret and pain and something else, something that looked almost like relief. "I am sorry," he whispered, his voice breaking. "I had no choice. I could not let you kill me. Not yet. Not before I finish what I started." Elena tried to speak, tried to curse him, tried to do anything, but her mouth would not work. Blood was filling it, copper taste. She coughed, sprayed red. James was there suddenly, kneeling beside her, his Browning pressed against the back of Zahir's head. One word. Give me one word and I paint this tunnel with his brains. Elena wanted to say yes, wanted to watch Zahir die, wanted revenge so badly she could taste it alongside the blood. But something stopped her. Something her father had said. Something Wraith had repeated. Something that mattered more than her hate. One shot, one life. Make it count. Elena's legs gave out. She fell to her knees. Her pistol slipped from her fingers. The tunnel was spinning. She could hear James shooting, hear the last guard falling, hear boots running toward her. Then another sound. A voice on the radio. Wraith's voice. Weak and distant and filtered through 7,000 miles of satellite relay and hospital room interference. "Ellie," his voice cracked. "Ellie, talk to me. What is happening?" Elena reached for her radio with a hand that did not want to work anymore. "Gunny," her voice was barely a whisper. "I got Hassan, but Zahir, he..." The radio cut out, just static. Then James was there, kneeling beside her, applying pressure to the wound in her back. His hands came away red. "Medic," James was shouting into his own radio. "I need a medic at the tunnel, friendly down." "Gunshot wound. She is losing blood." Elena looked past him. Zahir was still standing there, gun in hand, but he was not running, not shooting, just standing, waiting, like he wanted to be killed. "Why?" Elena coughed, blood in her mouth. "Why did you shoot me?" "Because," Zahir's voice was hollow, "because I could not let you kill me before I finished what I started. Hassan is dead, but there are others, a whole network, and I am the only one who knows where they are. If I die now, hundreds more will die later. Your father understood that. Duty before revenge, mission before personal vendetta. You do not get to talk about my father." James aimed his M4 at Zahir's head. "Say the word and I drop him." Elena wanted to say yes, wanted to watch him die, But somewhere in the back of her mind, through the pain and the blood loss and the rage, she heard her father's voice. The last thing Wraith said he told her. One shot, one life, make it count. If she killed Zahir now, it would be revenge. Personal, satisfying, but it would not save lives, would not stop the network, would not make her father's death mean anything beyond one more casualty in an endless war. Let him live. Elena's vision was going dark at the edges. Commander Hayes was right. The situation is complicated. The last thing she saw before passing out was Zahir's face, and he was crying. She woke up in pain. That was how she knew she was alive. Dead people did not hurt like this. The pain was everywhere. Her shoulder where the ricochet hit. Her back where Zahir shot her. Her hands still burned from the vent. Her knees scraped raw from crawling. Every part of her body was screaming. She opened her eyes. White ceiling, fluorescent lights, the smell of antiseptic, hospital. She was in a hospital, which meant she had made it out, somehow. A face appeared above her. Lawson. The Master Chief looked like hell. His face was covered in dust and dried blood. His eyes were red from exhaustion. But he was smiling. Welcome back, Reeves. Elena's throat was dry, felt like sandpaper. Did we? She coughed. Did we get them? Hassan is dead. Lawson pulled up a chair and sat down heavily. Zahir is in CIA custody. The compound is secure. Your British friend James disappeared before we could debrief him, but he left this. He handed her a folded piece of paper. Elena unfolded it with shaking hands. The handwriting was precise. Military. Ellie, tell my father he can rest now. It is done. And tell him I understand why he chose you. You are everything he said you were. Wraith. She closed her eyes, felt tears running down her cheeks. In a hospital room 7,000 miles away, Gunnery Sergeant Thomas Sullivan was listening to this on a radio feed, hearing that the mission was complete, that Hassan was dead, that Zahir was captured, that his student had survived. She hoped it gave him peace. Lawson cleared his throat. I owe you an apology. A real one. Not the bullshit I gave you before. You saved my team. Martinez is alive because you cut the power on those sentry guns. We all are. And what you did in that compound, alone against 24 hostiles, that was, he paused, searching for words. That was the most courageous thing I have ever seen. I was just doing my job, Master Chief. No, Lawson shook his head. You were doing your father's job, finishing what he started, and you did it. He would be proud. Elena turned her head to look at him. The man who called her Tinkerbell, who doubted her, who thought size mattered more than skill. His face had changed. The mockery was gone, replaced by something she never expected to see from him. Respect. How is the team? She asked. Martinez is stable. Medevac to Landstuhl. He will walk again, but it will take time. The rest of us are banged up, but operational. We are wheels up in 6 hours. You are coming with us. The mission? Complete. Hassan's network is being rolled up as we speak. Zahir is singing like a canary, giving up names and locations. Your father's death just saved a lot of lives. Elena closed her eyes again. One shot, one life. Make it count. She had made it count. Not the way she wanted, not with revenge, but with something better. With purpose. Rest, Lawson stood. We will get you home. And Reeves? He paused at the door. Thank you for everything. He left. Elena lay there in the quiet, listening to the beep of monitors, feeling the pull of stitches and the ache of healing wounds. She thought about her father, about Wraith, about the mission, about all the choices that led to this moment. Then her phone buzzed. The red one, the encrypted one. She picked it up with her good hand, a text message, from a number with a Washington, D.C. area code. Joy S. G. Sullivan passed away at 0347 Zulu. He was listening to the mission feed until the end. His last words were, quote, one shot, one life. Tell her she made it count, end quote. Condolences, Hayes. The phone slipped from Elena's fingers. She stared at the ceiling and let herself cry. Not for the pain in her body, but for the pain of loss. Wraith was gone. The man who taught her everything, who turned her grief into purpose, who sent his own son to watch her back on the mission his cancer would not let him finish. He died knowing she succeeded, died hearing Hassan fall, died at peace. That would have to be enough. The pain was everywhere and everything. It was not just physical. Not just the gunshot wound in her back or the ricochet fragment in her shoulder, or the burns on her hands, or the 1,000 other small injuries that accumulated when you crawled through hell and came out the other side. This was deeper. This was the pain of living when good men died, the pain of choosing duty over vengeance, the pain of knowing that the man who killed your father was still breathing because you decided his intelligence value outweighed your need for closure. Elena lay in the hospital bed at Landstuhl Regional Medical Center in Germany, the same hospital where they brought soldiers from Iraq and Afghanistan when the field hospitals could not save them, when they needed real surgery, real medicine, real miracles. She had been here before, not as a patient, but as a visitor, sitting beside the beds of soldiers she had trained with. Soldiers who lost legs or arms or pieces of their minds in places with names most Americans could not pronounce. Now she was one of them. One of the broken ones who made it home but left parts of themselves on foreign soil. Not body parts, not visible injuries, but something deeper. Something that would take longer than 6 weeks to heal. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead. The machines beeped steadily, monitoring her heart rate, her blood pressure, her oxygen saturation, turning her survival into numbers on a screen, numbers that said she was alive, numbers that did not account for the cost. Her back throbbed with every heartbeat, a deep, bone-level ache that the morphine could dull but not eliminate. The surgeons had gone in through her side to remove the Makarov round. 9mm, full metal jacket, standard issue for intelligence officers operating in denied areas. It had punched through her external oblique muscle, the one that wrapped around her torso like armor, nicked her left kidney, left a furrow in the tissue that would scar, exited clean through the front, missing her intestines by less than an inch, missing her spine by less than 2. They said she was lucky. The surgeon who briefed her after she woke from anesthesia was young, probably fresh out of residency. He had shown her the scans, the trajectory, the damage, used words like remarkable and fortunate and miracle, told her that most people who took rounds in that location did not make it to surgery, did not wake up, did not get to hear how lucky they were. Elena did not feel lucky. She felt like she had been shot, like she had made choices that led to being shot, like she was alive because Zahir had deliberately aimed to wound rather than kill. That was not luck. That was calculation. Cold, clinical. The kind of decision you made when you needed someone to live long enough to let you live. The door opened. Lawson walked in. The Master Chief looked different somehow. The swagger was gone, the easy confidence that came from being the biggest, strongest, most capable man in most rooms. He looked tired, weathered, like he had aged 5 years in the last 5 days. He carried a folder under his arm and a cup of coffee that smelled like it had been sitting on a hot plate since the previous administration. "You are awake," Lawson pulled up a chair, the institutional kind, plastic, uncomfortable, designed to discourage long visits. He sat down heavily. The chair creaked under his weight. "How are you feeling?" "Like I got shot." Elena's voice was rough, dry. The morphine drip was keeping the worst of the pain at bay, but it also made her mouth taste like copper and ashes, made her thoughts slow and sticky. "How long was I out?" 36 hours. They had you in surgery for 8. Longest 8 hours of my life." Lawson set the folder on the bedside table. "The doctors say you will make a full recovery, 6 to 8 weeks before you are cleared for duty. Longer if you want to take leave. Physical therapy, pain management. The whole 9 yards. I do not want leave. I want to get back to work." "I figured." Lawson almost smiled. It was a sad smile, the kind that knew things. "You are as stubborn as your old man." Marcus would not take leave either, even when he should have, even when the doctors told him his body needed rest. He just pushed through, said Rangers do not quit, said pain was just weakness leaving the body. "You knew my father?" Elena turned her head to look at him, really looked, saw something in his face she had not noticed before. Respect, maybe even grief. "Not well, but better than I let on." Lawson looked down at his hands, big hands, scarred from years of hard use. "I was at Dam Neck in 2008 when his unit came through for joint training. SEAL Team 5 was running urban warfare drills. Your dad's Ranger platoon was the opposition force. We were supposed to win. We were SEALs. They were conventional army. Should have been easy. It was not easy. Your father handed us our asses. Took our objective, captured half my team, made us look like boot camp recruits. And when it was over, when we were sitting around the debrief table trying to figure out what the hell happened, he just smiled and said, "Size does not matter. Speed does. Precision does. Knowing your enemy better than he knows himself does." He was talking about tactics, but I think he was also talking about life. Lawson paused, cleared his throat. I remember thinking he was the kind of guy you wanted on your six when everything went wrong. The kind who would not quit, would not break, would die before he let his team down. And I remember him talking about his daughter, you. You were 14 back then. Going through that phase where teenagers think they know everything and their parents are idiots. He said you were going to be something special. Said you had his temper and your mother's brains, and that combination was going to change the world. Did he really say that? Elena felt tears burning in her eyes, fought to keep them from falling. Word for word, I wrote it down in my journal that night. Figured I would forget otherwise. But I did not forget. And 6 years later, when JSOC told me I was getting a female sniper attached to my team for a high-value target mission, I looked at the name, Chief Warrant Officer 2 Elena Reeves, and I remembered. Lawson met her eyes. He was right. You did change the world. Maybe not the whole world, but our world. The world of people who do this work, you changed that. Elena could not speak. The tears were coming now, silent, hot, running down her face into the hospital pillow. Lawson reached over and put one of his massive hands on her shoulder. Gentle, careful, the way you would touch something precious. Marcus would be proud of you. I am proud of you. And I am sorry I did not see it sooner. Sorry I called you Tinkerbell. Sorry I doubted you for even a second. You are one of the best warriors I have ever served with, and I have served with the best. Thank you, Elena's voice was barely a whisper. They sat there in silence for a while. Lawson's hand on her shoulder. A connection between two people who had seen hell and come back different. Finally, he pulled his hand back, picked up the folder. There is something else you need to know about what happened after you went down. Mission debrief, after action report, and some other things you need to see. Lawson picked up the folder but did not open it yet. First, I need to tell you something about what happened in the tunnel. I remember the tunnel. Elena's hand clenched into a fist under the thin hospital blanket. I remember all of it. Then you remember that you made a choice. You let Zahir live. Lawson's voice was carefully neutral. Some people are questioning that decision, saying you had a clear shot and did not take it, saying personal feelings compromised the mission. Who is saying that? People who were not there. People who do not understand what it takes to make that call. Lawson leaned forward. I am here to tell you that you made the right choice. Zahir has given us more actionable intelligence in the last 36 hours than we got in the last 6 years. We rolled up 8 cells, captured 43 operatives, seized enough weapons and explosives to level half of Kabul, and we are just getting started. He opened the folder, pulled out a photograph. It showed a warehouse, crates stacked floor to ceiling, armed men standing guard. This was taken 6 hours ago in Karachi. Zahir gave us the location, told us the guard schedule, told us the access codes. Pakistani commandos hit it at dawn, found 3 tons of C4, 200 AK-47s, 50 RPG launchers, and something else. What? Chemical weapons, sarin gas precursors, enough to kill thousands, maybe tens of thousands. It was going to be used in an attack on the Karachi airport during the Christmas holiday rush. Lawson put the photo down. You saved those lives, Reeves, not by killing Zahir, by letting him live. Elena stared at the ceiling, tried to process it, tried to feel something other than emptiness. What about Hassan? Dead, confirmed. We recovered his body from the tunnel, ran DNA and dental records. It is him. The architect is gone. His network is collapsing. And it is all because you crawled into a pipe that no one else could fit through and did the impossible. I had help. James Sullivan, the British operative. Lawson nodded. He vanished before we could debrief him, slipped out during the medevac chaos. But he left something for you. Lawson pulled an envelope from the folder. This was on your gear when we loaded you into the chopper. Elena took the envelope with shaking hands. It was sealed with wax. Old school. She broke the seal and unfolded the letter inside. The handwriting was precise, controlled, military. Ellie, I am writing this because I will be gone by the time you wake up. I do not do debriefs. I do not do medals or commendations or any of the bureaucratic nonsense that follows missions like this. I do what needs to be done, and then I disappear. That is how I have stayed alive this long. But I wanted you to know something before I left. My father, Gunnery Sergeant Thomas Sullivan, Wraith. He died at 0347 Zulu, 23 minutes after Hassan went down. The hospital said his heart just stopped, like he had been holding on for something, and once he heard it was done, he let go. His last words were for you. The nurse wrote them down and sent them to me. He said, "Tell Ellie she made it count. Tell her Marcus would be proud. Tell her I am proud. One shot, one life, one legacy." I never had the best relationship with my father. We were too similar, both too stubborn, both too damaged by the things we had seen and done. But in the end, he did something I will never forget. He trusted me to watch over the daughter he never had, to protect the student who meant more to him than his own son. And you know what? I understand why. You are everything he said you were and more. You have his courage, his discipline, his refusal to quit even when quitting is the smart choice. But you also have something he never had, the wisdom to know when mercy is stronger than vengeance, when the mission matters more than personal satisfaction. That is what makes you dangerous, not your ability to make impossible shots, but your ability to not take them when it serves a greater purpose. Take care of yourself, Ellie. The world needs more warriors like you, and fewer ghosts like me. Wraith. P.S. The knife I was carrying, the one my father gave me, I left it with your gear. It belongs with you now. Use it well. Elena read the letter 3 times, then folded it carefully and held it against her chest. Felt the tears coming and did not try to stop them. Wraith was gone. The man who saved her from becoming just another angry kid with a dead parent and no future. The man who taught her that precision could be a form of prayer. That discipline could be a kind of love. That one perfect shot mattered more than 1,000 wasted bullets. He died listening to her. Died knowing she succeeded. Died at peace. That would have to be enough. Lawson stood quietly, gave her space, gave her time. When the tears finally stopped, he spoke again. There is something else you need to know about Zahir. What about him? He wants to see you, keeps asking for you, says he needs to explain, needs you to understand what really happened in 2008. I do not want to see him. I figured. But the CIA thinks it might be useful. They want him cooperative, willing to keep talking. And apparently the only person he wants to talk to is you. Lawson shrugged. It is your call. You do not owe him anything. But if you want answers, real answers about what happened to your father, this might be your only chance. Elena closed her eyes, tried to imagine it, sitting across from the man who held her father while he died, the man who claimed he tried to save him, the man who shot her to avoid being killed before he could finish his atonement. Did he really try to warn my father? According to the intelligence we have now, yes. Zahir sent a message through a courier. Hassan's people intercepted it, killed the courier. Set the trap. Your father walked in blind. Lawson's voice was gentle. Marcus Reeves died because Hassan wanted to send a message to anyone who worked with the Americans. Zahir has been trying to make up for that failure ever since. Elena opened her eyes. Where is he? CIA black site, about 2 kilometers from here. They can have you there in 20 minutes if you want to go. But like I said, your call, no pressure. Give me an hour. I need to get dressed. Lawson nodded, started to leave, then stopped at the door. Reeves, one more thing. What? Thank you for saving my team, for saving me. I was wrong about you, dead wrong, and I am sorry it took getting my ass shot at for me to figure that out. You are welcome, Master Chief, and for what it is worth, you were right to question me. I was an unknown, untested in your eyes. You did your job, kept your team safe. That is what leaders do. Lawson smiled. It was a real smile, warm, genuine. Maybe, but I will never doubt you again. That is a promise. He left. Elena lay there for a few more minutes, then forced herself to sit up. The pain was immediate and intense, like someone driving a hot poker through her back. She gasped, waited for it to subside, then swung her legs over the side of the bed. Standing was harder. Her legs shook. The room spun. She had lost blood, lost strength, lost the easy confidence that came from having a body that did what you told it to do. She gripped the IV stand for support, took one step, then another. made it to the small bathroom attached to the hospital room. The face in the mirror was not hers, or at least it did not feel like hers. Pale, hollow-eyed, bruised. There was a cut on her forehead she did not remember getting, stitches running through her left eyebrow. Her hair was matted with dried blood and dust. She looked like she had been in a car accident or a war. She looked like her father had looked in the photos from Fallujah, after the house-to-house fighting, after the things that changed him. Elena turned on the shower, let the water run until it was hot, then stripped off the hospital gown and stepped under the spray. The water stung every cut, every burn, every abraded patch of skin. But it also washed away the dried blood, the smell of gunpowder and cordite, the physical residue of violence. She wished it could wash away the memories too, but those were permanent. Those were scars that did not show up on x-rays. 30 minutes later, Elena was dressed in fresh fatigues that someone had left folded on a chair. They were too big. Everything was too big for someone her size. She rolled up the sleeves, tightened the belt, made it work. Then she found James's knife in a clear plastic bag with her other personal effects. She pulled it out. The blade was clean. Someone had wiped it down, but she could still see the faint etching along the spine. Sullivan, USMC, Vietnam, 1968. She attached it to her belt, felt the weight of it, the history, 3 generations of warriors. Wraith, who carried it through the jungles of Vietnam, James, who carried it through the mountains of Afghanistan, and now her, carrying it forward into whatever came next. A knock on the door. "Come in." A young corporal entered, looked nervous. "Ma'am, I am your escort. The vehicle is ready when you are." "Let us go." The drive to the CIA facility took 18 minutes through the streets of Ramstein. It was early morning. The sun was just coming up, painting the German sky in shades of orange and gold. Elena watched the world pass by through the window of the armored SUV. Civilian cars, shops opening, people walking dogs. Normal life. The kind of life that existed because people like her father and Wraith and James went into dark places so others did not have to. The CIA black site was disguised as a telecommunications relay station. Concrete building, barbed wire fence, guard towers, the kind of place that looked boring enough that nobody asked questions. The corporal dropped her at the main gate, waited while she was checked through security. Retinal scan, fingerprints, background check that took 3 seconds because she was already in the system. A case officer met her inside. Woman, late 30s, blonde hair pulled back in a severe bun. She wore a dark suit and no expression. "Chief Warrant Officer Reeves, I am Officer Mitchell. Thank you for coming." "Where is he?" "Interview room 3. I should warn you. He has been asking for you since he regained consciousness. He seems to think you are the only person who can understand what he is trying to say." "What is he trying to say?" "That he is sorry." Mitchell's face softened slightly. "For what it is worth, I think he means it. He has given us everything. Names, locations, bank accounts, things we have been trying to get for years. And he keeps saying it is all for Captain Marcus Reeves, all to make it right." Elena followed Mitchell through a maze of corridors, white walls, fluorescent lights, the smell of floor cleaner and coffee. They reached a door marked Interview Room 3. Mitchell swiped her badge. The lock clicked open. "You will have 15 minutes. There are guards outside. Panic button is under the table if you need it." Mitchell paused. "He is not armed. He is not a threat. But if you need to leave at any time, just knock and we will get you out." "I will be fine." Mitchell left. Elena took a breath, then pushed open the door. Zahir sat at a metal table in the center of the room. He was handcuffed, wrists chained to a bolt in the table. He wore an orange jumpsuit, the kind reserved for high-value detainees. His face was bruised, swollen. Someone had interrogated him the hard way before deciding cooperation was more useful than resistance. But his eyes were clear, alert. And when he saw Elena, he sat up straighter, relief washing over his features. "You came." His voice was hoarse, damaged, like he had been shouting or screaming. "I was not sure you would." Elena sat down across from him, kept her hands on the table where he could see them, where she could reach for a weapon if needed. "I am here for answers, not forgiveness." "I understand." Zahir nodded slowly. "What do you want to know?" "Everything. Start with 2008. Start with my father." Zahir closed his eyes, took a breath, then began to speak. "I was ISI, Pakistani intelligence, but I was also something else. A man who saw what extremism was doing to my country, to my people. The Taliban, Al-Qaeda, they were destroying Pakistan from the inside, turning us into a failed state, a breeding ground for terrorism. I wanted to stop it, but I could not do it alone. So I reached out to the Americans, offered to help. Your people put me in touch with Hassan, told me to get close to him, learn his network, feed you intelligence. It worked. For 6 months, I gave the CIA everything. Weapon shipments, safe houses, meeting locations. But Hassan was smart. He suspected there was a mole, so he tested me. How? He told me he had a target, an American Ranger unit planning to raid his compound. He said if I was truly loyal to him, I would help set a trap. I refused, told him it was too risky, but he did not give me a choice. He said if I did not help, he would kill my family, my wife, my 2 daughters. He had men watching them, had photos of them at school, at home. I had no choice. Elena's hands clenched into fists. So you set the trap? No. Zahir opened his eyes, met hers directly. I sent a warning through a courier I trusted, told him to get word to the Americans that Hassan knew they were coming, that the compound was rigged with IEDs, that it was a kill zone. But Hassan was watching me. He intercepted my courier, tortured him, killed him. Then he let the raid proceed exactly as planned. Your father's unit hit the compound at 0400. I was there. Hassan made me watch, made me see what happened when someone betrayed him. The Rangers breached the main door. The first IE detonated, killed 2 men instantly. Your father was in the second position. The blast threw him 15 feet, buried him under rubble. Zahir's voice broke. I waited until Hassan left, until his men moved to other positions. Then I went in, pulled your father out. He was still alive, barely. His legs were shattered. Internal bleeding. I tried to stop it, tried to save him, but there was too much damage. What did he say? Zahir looked down at his cuffed hands. He said, tell my daughter Elena that I love her. Tell her to be strong. Tell her that fear is just pain leaving the body. Tell her to make every shot count. Then he asked me to promise him something. What? That I would not let Hassan win. That I would use my position to destroy him from the inside. That I would save as many American lives as I took. He said, if you do that, maybe my death will mean something. I promised him, and I have spent 6 years keeping that promise. Every piece of intelligence, every operation, every life saved. It was all for Marcus, all to honor a man I could not save. Elena felt tears running down her face, did not bother to wipe them away. Why did you shoot me in the tunnel? Because I was not done. Zahir's voice was urgent now, desperate. Hassan was just one man, but his network is vast. There are others, worse than him, and I am the only one who knows where they all are. If I died in that tunnel, the intelligence died with me. Hundreds, maybe thousands would die in attacks I could have prevented. So I shot you, not to kill you. I aimed low, away from vital organs. I needed you to let me live long enough to finish what I started. You could have just asked. Would you have listened? Zahir smiled sadly. You had a gun to my head and 6 years of rage in your eyes. I saw your finger on the trigger. I had maybe 2 seconds before you pulled it. So I made a choice. I became the villain again, so I could be the hero later. Elena stood, walked to the small window in the corner of the room, looked out at nothing. Her mind was racing, processing, trying to reconcile the monster she had built in her head with the man sitting in chains telling her he tried to save her father. I do not know if I believe you. I do not expect you to. Zahir's voice was calm, accepting, like a man who had already made peace with whatever judgment came his way. But I can prove it. Ask the CIA about Operation Sandstorm. March 2009, I gave them the location of a Taliban leadership meeting in Waziristan. 12 commanders, all killed in a drone strike. Those 12 men had planned 47 attacks on coalition forces. Were responsible for over 300 deaths. After they died, attacks in that region dropped by 60%. Or ask about Operation Guardian Angel. November 2010, I warned about an ambush on a convoy near Kandahar, told them the exact kilometer marker where the IEDs were planted, told them the number of fighters waiting in the hills. 47 American soldiers were on that convoy. All of them made it home because I sent that warning. Or Operation Nightfall, June 2012. I provided intelligence that stopped a sarin gas attack on the Kabul embassy. The chemicals were already in place. The attackers were in position. 300 people worked in that embassy. Diplomats, Marines, Afghan staff. All of them would have died choking on their own lungs if I had not given up the location. Zahir leaned forward as much as his chains would allow, his eyes intense, desperate to be understood. I have the records, the proof, every operation, every life. I kept a ledger, not on paper. In here, he tapped his temple, because I needed to know, needed to count, needed to see if I could ever balance the scales for the 4 men who died in that compound in 2008. For your father, for Sergeant First Class David Martinez, for Specialist James Kowalski, for Private First Class Miguel Santos. I know all their names. I have known them for 6 years. They visit me at night, when I try to sleep, when I close my eyes. Your father is the one who talks to me the most. In my dreams, he is always back in that rubble, always bleeding out, always asking me to promise that his death will mean something. And every time I wake up, I check my ledger. I count the lists. I do the math, trying to figure out if 4 lives equal 47, or 300, or 1,000. Zahir's voice broke. The truth is they do not. Mathematics does not work that way. You cannot balance death with more death, cannot wash blood away with blood. But you try anyway, because the alternative is accepting that you failed, that good men died because you were not smart enough, not fast enough, not brave enough to stop it. So I became smarter. I became faster. I spent 6 years destroying the network that killed your father from the inside. Cell by cell, operative by operative. I fed the Americans everything. Bank accounts, safe houses, communication protocols. I burned my own people, betrayed men I had known for decades, sent them to black sites or drone strikes or special operations raids. And every single time I signed another death warrant, I told myself it was for Marcus, for the promise I made to a dying man. Elena felt something shift inside her. Not forgiveness, not yet, but understanding. This man sitting across from her was not the monster she had built in her head. He was just broken, trying to fix something that could never be fixed. The same thing she had been trying to do for 6 years. How many? Elena asked. How many operations did you help with? Zahir closed his eyes, started counting on his fingers. When he ran out of fingers, he started over. 42 confirmed operations. Another 18 where my intelligence contributed, but was not the primary source. The CIA estimates I have prevented somewhere between 800 and 1,200 combat deaths, plus the civilian lives saved from the attacks I helped stop. The Karachi airport, the Islamabad market, the school in Peshawar. He opened his eyes, but none of that brings back the 4 men who died because I was not smart enough to stop Hassan in time. None of it changes the fact that I held your father in my arms and felt his life drain away while I did nothing but watch. You were not the one who planted the IEDs. You were not the one who detonated them. That was Hassan. Yes, but I was the one who failed to stop him, failed to get the warning through in time. And in this business, failure has a body count. Elena stood, walked to the small window in the corner of the interrogation room, looked out at nothing, just a courtyard with concrete walls and razor wire, a place designed to hold dangerous men. Men like Zahir, men like her in a different life. My father believed in second chances. She spoke without turning around. He used to say that the measure of a man was not in his mistakes, but in what he did after, how he tried to make it right. She turned to face Zahir. You made a mistake, a terrible one, but you have spent 6 years trying to make it right, trying to honor the promise you made to a dying man. That counts for something. Does it? Zahir's face was wet with tears now. Does it count when I still see his face every time I close my eyes? When I still hear him asking me to tell his daughter he loved her? Elena felt her own tears coming again. Did not fight them this time. Yes, it counts. Not enough to erase what happened, not enough to bring him back, but enough to mean something, enough to matter. She walked back to the table, sat down, looked directly into the eyes of the man who had haunted her nightmares. I am not going to forgive you. I do not know if I ever can, but I am going to stop hating you, because hate is what brought me here. Hate is what almost made me kill you in that tunnel. And if I had pulled that trigger, 800 people would be dead. The Karachi airport attack would have succeeded, and my father's death would have meant nothing except another casualty in an endless war. So you did something my hate could not do. You made his death matter. You turned it into something more than tragedy. You turned it into purpose. Zahir bowed his head, shoulders shaking. Thank you. It was barely a whisper. For understanding, for listening, for not pulling the trigger. Elena stood, walked to the door, knocked once, then looked back at Zahir one last time. Keep talking. Keep giving them everything. Finish what you started. Finish what my father asked you to finish. And maybe someday, when you close your eyes, he will stop visiting. Maybe someday, he will let you rest. I hope so. Zahir looked up. His face was a mess of tears and bruises and something that might have been hope. But I do not think I deserve rest. Not yet. Not until the ledger is balanced. The ledger will never balance. Elena said it gently, without judgment. That is the thing about guilt, about atonement. You can save 10,000 lives and it will not bring back the one you lost. But you try anyway, because trying is all we have. The door opened. Mitchell stood there. Elena walked out without looking back, because looking back would break her, would undo the fragile peace she had just made. And she needed that peace, needed to carry it forward, needed to let it begin the slow work of healing wounds that went deeper than bullets. Zahir told her, and Elena listened, and for the first time since she was 14 years old, she felt something shift inside her. Not forgiveness, not exactly, but understanding, the beginning of peace, the first step toward letting go of the hate that had driven her for so long. When he finished, she stood, walked to the door, knocked. Mitchell opened it. Are you done? Mitchell asked. Yes. Elena looked back at Zahir one last time. Keep him alive. Keep him talking. He has more to give. We will. And Mitchell? Make sure his family is safe, his wife, his daughters. If Hassan's network finds out he is cooperating, they will come for them. Already done. They are in protective custody. New identities. New lives. Good. Elena walked out. Did not look back. Did not need to. She had her answers. Had her closure. Had the beginning of something that might one day become forgiveness. But not today. Today she just had the knowledge that her father died trying to do the right thing, and that the man who held him in his final moments had spent 6 years trying to honor that sacrifice. That would have to be enough. The corporal drove her back to Lohnstuhl. The sun was higher now, the world fully awake. Elena closed her eyes and let herself rest. Really rest. For the first time in days. For the first time in years, maybe. When she woke, they were back at the hospital. Lawson was waiting in her room. He had brought food, real food, not hospital food, burgers from a place off base, fries, a chocolate shake. Figured you could use something that does not taste like sadness and regret. He set the bag on her lap. How did it go? It went. Elena unwrapped a burger, took a bite. It was perfect, greasy and hot, and exactly what she needed. He told me everything. And I believe him. My father died trying to stop a terrorist. Zahir has spent 6 years trying to finish what my father started. It does not make us even, does not make him innocent, but it makes him something other than the monster I thought he was. Lawson nodded. That is the thing about this war, about any war. The lines are not as clear as we want them to be. The enemy is not always evil. The ally is not always good. We are all just people making choices in impossible situations, trying to live with the consequences. They ate in comfortable silence. When the food was gone, Lawson stood to leave, then paused. One more thing. Your orders came through. You are being transferred to Walter Reed for extended recovery. Flight leaves in 6 hours. You will be stateside by tonight. What about my gear, my rifle? Already packed and tagged. It will meet you there. Lawson hesitated. The Shaytak is being retired. Commander Hayes said you earned the right to keep it. If you want it. Elena thought about the weapon that had defined her career. The rifle that had made impossible shots. The tool that had saved lives and taken them. She thought about Wraith teaching her to use it. About her father who never got to see her become the shooter she became. Yeah, I want it, but not to use, to remember. Good answer. Lawson extended his hand. It has been an honor, Chief Reeves, a real honor. Elena shook his hand. The honor was mine, Master Chief. He left, and Elena was alone again. But this time the loneliness did not hurt as much. This time she had answers, had closure, had the beginning of peace. She lay back in the bed and closed her eyes. In her mind, she could hear Wraith's voice, could hear him saying the words he had said 1,000 times. One shot, one life, make it count. She had made it count. Her father would be proud. And that was all that mattered. The flight from Germany to Washington took 9 hours. Elena sat in the medical transport section of the C-17 Globemaster, strapped into a stretcher even though she could walk. Military regulations. She was still classified as a critical patient, still healing, still broken in ways that X-rays could not measure. Around her were other wounded, some missing limbs, some with burns covering half their bodies, some with the kind of distant stare that came from seeing things the human mind was not designed to process. She closed her eyes and tried to sleep, but sleep brought dreams, and dreams brought tunnels. Darkness, heat, the smell of cordite and blood. She saw her father's face, saw Wraith in his hospital bed, saw Zahir holding a smoking pistol, saw Hassan falling, saw James disappearing into smoke. The images cycled through her mind like a film reel stuck on repeat. When she opened her eyes, a medic was checking her vitals. Young kid, maybe 22. He looked at the chart clipped to her stretcher. "You are Chief Reeves, the one from the Obsidian Ridge mission." "I am just Reeves," the medic smiled. "My brother is at Fort Benning. He is in your sniper course. Or he was. He says you are a legend. Says you can shoot better than anyone he has ever seen. Your brother talks too much. Probably. But he also says you are the reason he wants to be a sniper. Says if someone your size can do what you did, then anyone can do anything if they work hard enough." Elena did not know what to say to that, did not know how to tell this kid that being a legend meant living with nightmares, meant carrying the weight of every shot you took and every shot you did not take, meant choosing between revenge and duty and living with the consequences either way. Tell your brother to stay focused on the fundamentals. Breathing, trigger control, wind reading. The fancy stuff comes later. "I will." The medic finished his checks. "We will be landing at Andrews in about 30 minutes. There is a bus waiting to take you to Walter Reed. Your gear is already there." "Thank you." The medic moved on to the next patient. Elena lay there watching the cargo bay ceiling, listening to the drone of engines, thinking about what came next. 6 to 8 weeks of recovery, physical therapy, pain management, psychological evaluation. They would ask her about the mission, about the kills, about the choices. They would want to know if she was fit to return to duty, if she could still pull the trigger without hesitation. She did not know the answer to that anymore. Walter Reed National Military Medical Center was larger than she remembered. Massive. A sprawling complex of buildings that held the broken pieces of America's wars. She had been here twice before. Once to visit Wraith, once to attend the funeral of a soldier she trained who died in Helmand Province. Both times she walked in and walked out. This time they wheeled her in on a gurney, took her to a room on the 4th floor of the main hospital. Room 412, the same floor where Wraith had died. The room was standard. Bed, chair, television mounted on the wall, window overlooking a courtyard where patients in wheelchairs sat in the sun. Elena transferred from the gurney to the bed with help from a nurse. An older woman, gray hair, kind eyes. The kind of eyes that had seen too much suffering and still managed to care. "You need anything, honey, you just press that button." The nurse pointed to a call device clipped to the bed rail. "We will get you settled. Doctor will be by in a few hours to check on you." "Thank you." The nurse left. Elena was alone. She looked around the room and saw her gear stacked in the corner. Her ruck, her drag bag, and a long black case she recognized immediately. The Shaytak M200. Commander Hayes had kept her word. The rifle was hers to keep. Elena forced herself out of bed. Her back screamed in protest, but she ignored it. Walked slowly to the corner, knelt down, unzipped the case. The rifle lay there in its foam cradle. 53 inches of matte black precision. The scope still mounted, the bipod folded. She ran her fingers along the barrel. Cold, lifeless, just metal and polymer and glass. But it felt like more than that. It felt like a connection to everything she had been, everything she had done. She thought about the shots this weapon had made, the lives it had saved, the lives it had taken. Thought about the impossible shot at 3,850 meters. Thought about the choice not to take the shot on Zahir. Thought about how both decisions had defined who she was. A knock on the door. "Come in." The door opened. Not a nurse, not a doctor. A woman in a dark suit, late 40s, professional. She carried a briefcase and the kind of bearing that said government employee, probably CIA. Chief Warrant Officer Reeves. The woman extended her hand. I am Deputy Director Sarah Mitchell. We spoke briefly at the Black Site in Germany. I remember. Elena shook her hand, stayed standing even though it hurt. What can I do for you? I wanted to give you an update on Colonel Zahir and to thank you personally for the decision you made in that tunnel. Mitchell set her briefcase on the chair. Zahir has continued to cooperate fully. In the last 72 hours, he has given us intelligence that led to the disruption of 11 planned attacks, the arrest of 67 operatives across 4 countries, and the seizure of enough weapons and explosives to arm a small army. That is good. It is more than good. It is extraordinary. Mitchell pulled out a folder from her briefcase. Preliminary analysis suggests that the intelligence Zahir has provided will save somewhere between 1,000 and 1,500 lives over the next 12 months. American lives, Allied lives, civilian lives, and it is all because you chose not to pull the trigger when you had the chance. I did what the mission required. No, Mitchell's voice was firm. You did what most people could not do. You put aside 6 years of grief and rage and chose the greater good. That takes a kind of strength that has nothing to do with physical ability. It takes moral courage. And moral courage is the rarest thing in this business. Mitchell pulled out another document. This is a commendation letter. It will go in your file. It details your actions at Obsidian Ridge, the infiltration, the combat actions, the decision to preserve a high-value intelligence asset despite personal cost. It recommends you for the Medal of Honor. Elena shook her head. I do not want a medal. I figured you would say that. Mitchell smiled slightly, which is why I am also bringing you this. She pulled out a different envelope, handwritten. Your name on the front in shaky script. This arrived at Langley 2 days ago. It was sent by Zahir. Through his CIA handler, he asked us to make sure you received it. Elena took the envelope, felt the weight of it, wondered what words could possibly matter at this point. What Zahir could say that had not already been said in that interrogation room. She set it on the bedside table without opening it. There is one more thing. Mitchell's face became more serious. Zahir has asked if you would be willing to meet with him again. Not for interrogation, not for intelligence purposes, just to talk. He says there are things about your father that he wants you to know, things he did not have time to tell you before. Why would I do that? Because you deserve to know the whole truth. About how your father died, about what he said, about who he was in those final moments. Mitchell paused. But it is entirely your choice. No pressure, no obligation. If you want to move forward and never think about Zahir again, I will tell him no, and that will be the end of it. Elena looked at the envelope on the bedside table, thought about her father, about the 6 years she spent building a version of his death in her head, a version that might not be true, might not be complete. She thought about Race's mantra, one shot, one life. Make it count. Maybe making it count meant understanding all of it, not just the parts that fit the narrative of revenge. Tell him yes, but not yet. I need time. Take all the time you need. Mitchell packed up her briefcase. We are not going anywhere, and neither is he. She walked to the door, stopped, turned back. For what it is worth, Chief Reeves, your father would be proud of you. Not just for your skills as a soldier, but for your character as a human being. Mitchell left. Elena stood there holding the envelope. Finally, she opened it. The letter inside was written on lined paper. The handwriting was cramped, difficult to read, but every word was clear. Dear Elena, I do not expect you to read this. I do not expect you to care what I have to say. But I am writing it anyway because there are things you deserve to know. Things I did not tell you in that interrogation room because I was afraid you would think I was manipulating you. Trying to earn sympathy I do not deserve. Your father was a good man. I know that is obvious. I know you already knew that. But I need you to understand how good. When I pulled him from the rubble after the explosion, his legs were crushed. His internal injuries were catastrophic. He was dying and he knew it. But he did not cry, did not scream, did not beg me to save him. Instead, he asked me questions. He asked if any of his men had survived. I told him that Sergeant Martinez and Specialist Kowalski were already dead, that Private Santos was dying. Your father closed his eyes for a moment. Then he said, make sure their families know they died as heroes. Make sure they get the honors they deserve. Then he asked about me, asked who I was, why I was there. I told him the truth, that I was ISI, that I had been trying to stop the attack, that I had failed. He looked at me with those gray eyes, the same eyes you have, and he said, then you have a choice. You can let this failure define you, or you can use it to become something better. Make my death mean something. Make all our deaths mean something. That was when he told me about you. He said he had a daughter, 14 years old, smart, stubborn, angry at the world because she did not understand it yet. He said he worried about what would happen to you after he was gone, worried that you would let the anger consume you, turn you into someone hard and cold and incapable of mercy. He asked me to do something if I ever met you. He asked me to tell you that anger is just fear in disguise, fear of being hurt, fear of being powerless, fear of a world that does not make sense. He said the only way to overcome that fear is to find purpose, to turn the anger into something constructive, to make every action count towards something bigger than yourself. Then he said, tell my daughter Elena that I love her. Tell her to be strong but not hard. Tell her that the measure of a warrior is not in how many enemies she kills, but in how many friends she saves. Tell her that mercy is not weakness. It is the ultimate form of strength. Tell her to make every shot count, but also tell her that sometimes the most important shot is the one you do not take. Those were his last words. Then he was gone. I held him for another 10 minutes, even though he was already dead, because I had promised to make his death mean something. And I needed to remember his face, remember his voice, remember the weight of that promise. I have spent 6 years trying to keep that promise, trying to become the man your father asked me to be, trying to turn my failure into something redemptive. And when I saw you in that tunnel with your finger on the trigger and murder in your eyes, I knew this was the moment. This was the test. Would you be the person your father feared you might become? Or would you be the person he hoped you could be? You chose hope. You chose mercy. You chose to make his death mean something by letting me live to continue the work. That choice saved hundreds of lives, maybe thousands. That choice proved that Marcus Reeves was right about you, that you are strong but not hard, that you understand mercy is strength. Thank you for giving me the chance to keep my promise to your father. Thank you for being the daughter he always knew you would become. And thank you for showing me that redemption is possible, even for someone like me. With respect and gratitude, Rashid Zahir. Elena read the letter 3 times, then folded it carefully and put it back in the envelope. She sat on the edge of the bed and cried. Not for grief, not for loss, but for release, for the weight of 6 years lifting, for understanding that her father's last thoughts were not about dying. They were about living, about making sure the people he left behind found purpose in his absence. She cried until there were no tears left. Then she wiped her face, stood up, walked to the window, looked out at the courtyard where wounded warriors sat in wheelchairs or walked with prosthetic legs or simply stared at nothing. She thought about what came next, about who she wanted to be, about what her father would want her to do with the rest of her life. The door opened again. Elena turned. Lawson walked in carrying 2 cups of coffee and a bag that smelled like real food. Not hospital food, not MRE food. Real food from a restaurant that cared about flavor. Figured you could use something that does not taste like recycled sadness. He set the bag on the rolling table. Burgers, fries, milkshake, the essential food groups. You did not have to do this. I know, but I wanted to. Lawson pulled up the chair, sat down with a grunt. Plus, I needed to talk to you about something. What? Your future. Lawson took a sip of his coffee. SOCOM wants you, not just for training, for operational assignments. They want to create a special projects unit, small teams, high-value targets, places where conventional operators cannot go. They want you to lead it. I am a warrant officer, not a commander. They will promote you, captain, maybe major if you want it, give you full authority to recruit your own team, choose your own missions. They basically want to give you a blank check to do whatever you think needs to be done. Why? Because of what you did at Obsidian Ridge. Because you proved that the future of special operations is not about size or strength. It is about adaptability, innovation, being able to go places and do things that nobody expects. Lawson leaned forward. You changed the game, Reeves. And now everyone wants to play by your rules. What if I do not want to play? Lawson raised an eyebrow. What do you want? Elena looked out the window again, watched a young soldier learning to walk on new prosthetic legs, watched a therapist encouraging him, watched him fall, watched him get back up, watched him try again. I want to teach. I want to take everything I learned from Wraith and my father in this mission and pass it on. I want to train the next generation. Show them that being a warrior is not about how much you can destroy. It is about how much you can protect, how much you can build, how much you can save. She turned back to Lawson. I want to go back to Fort Benning, back to the sniper course, and I want to make it better, tougher, more focused on the things that actually matter. Mental discipline, moral courage, knowing when to take the shot and when not to. Lawson was quiet for a moment. Then he smiled. Your father would approve. So would Wraith. What about you? What do you think? I think you are making the right choice. The world has plenty of killers. What it needs is more teachers. More people who can turn anger into purpose, revenge into service, pain into growth. Thank you. Elena sat down on the bed for everything, for doubting me at first, for believing in me later, for being honest. That is what teammates do. Lawson stood, stretched. I have to head back to Dam Neck. The team needs me. But before I go, I want to give you something. He pulled a small box from his pocket, set it on the table. What is this? Open it. Elena opened the box. Inside was a trident, the seal insignia, gold, worn, old. That was my first trident from when I graduated Buds 22 years ago. I have carried it on every deployment since. It has been to Iraq, Afghanistan, Syria, Libya, places I cannot talk about. It has seen everything I have seen, survived everything I survived. Lawson reached over and closed her hand around it. I want you to have it, not because you are a SEAL, you will never be a SEAL, but because you earned the respect of every SEAL who served with you, because you showed us that the things we thought mattered, size, strength, ego, do not matter as much as heart, discipline, courage. You are one of us now, whether you wear the trident or not. Elena looked at the gold insignia in her palm, felt the weight of it, the history. I do not know what to say. Say you will remember us when you are training those new snipers, when you are teaching them about moral courage. Tell them about the SEALs who learned humility from a woman half their size. Tell them that being a warrior is not about being the biggest or the strongest. It is about being the best version of yourself. I will, I promise. Lawson nodded, then he did something unexpected. He came to attention, rendered a perfect military salute. Elena stood, returned it. Two warriors acknowledging each other, respecting each other, honoring the bond formed in darkness and fire. Lawson dropped his salute, walked to the door, stopped. One more thing, the impossible shot, the one at 3,800 meters. That is going to be studied for decades. Every sniper in the world is going to try to recreate it, try to beat it. But they will not, because it was not about the distance or the wind or the math. It was about you being exactly who you needed to be at exactly the right moment. It was luck. No, Lawson smiled. It was skill and heart. And 6 years of preparation for a moment you did not know was coming. That is what separates good snipers from great ones. Great ones are ready for the impossible. He left. Elena sat down, ate her burger, drank her shake, let herself feel something close to normal for the first time in days. When she finished, she walked back to the Chaytak case, looked at the rifle one more time, then closed the case, latched it, put it in the corner where it would stay. She was done making impossible shots. Now she would teach others how to make them. 3 months later, Elena stood on the firing line at Fort Benning. The burns on her hands had healed. The gunshot wound in her back was a scar now, pink, tight. A reminder that stayed with her when she moved or stretched or lay down to sleep. The doctors said it would fade with time. She did not mind if it did not. Scars were proof that you survived, that you came back. In front of her were 24 sniper candidates, men and women, different sizes, different backgrounds, all of them looking at her like she was some kind of myth, some kind of legend. She hated that look, hated being put on a pedestal. But she understood it. They needed heroes, needed someone to look up to, needed proof that hard work and discipline could overcome any obstacle. My name is Captain Elena Reeves. Elena had accepted the promotion, not because she wanted rank, but because it gave her the authority to change the program, to make it better. I will be your primary instructor for the next 12 weeks. Some of you know who I am. Some of you have heard stories. Forget all of that. The person you heard about does not exist anymore. That person made mistakes, took risks that could have gotten people killed. I am not here to teach you to be that person. She walked down the line, looked each candidate in the eye. I am here to teach you to be better than that person, smarter, more disciplined, more aware of the consequences of every decision you make. Because being a sniper is not about killing people from far away. Any idiot with a rifle can do that. Being a sniper is about saving lives, protecting your team, making the shots that matter and not taking the shots that do not. One of the candidates raised her hand. Small woman, maybe 5'2". She looked nervous but determined. Ma'am, I have a question. Go ahead. They say you made a shot at over 3,000 meters. Is that true? It is classified. But yes, I made that shot. How? The woman's voice was eager. How do you make a shot like that? Elena thought about it, thought about the tunnel, the climb, the pain, the choice. Thought about Wraith listening on the radio, James watching her back, Zahir standing in front of her gun. All of it leading to that one moment, that one trigger pull. You prepare, you practice, you study, you learn the math and the wind and the physics. You do all of that until it becomes second nature. And then when the moment comes, you do not think. You just trust that you did the work, that you are ready, that the shot is possible because you made it possible. But there is something else, something more important than any of that. What? You have to know why you are taking the shot, not just because someone ordered you to, not just because the target is there, but because taking that shot will save lives, will protect people who cannot protect themselves, will make the world incrementally better than it was before you pulled the trigger. Elena paused. Let the words sink in. And you have to know when not to take the shot. When pulling the trigger will cause more harm than good. When mercy is stronger than violence. When the mission requires you to be more than a killer. That is the hardest part. That is what separates a good sniper from a great one. The woman nodded, wrote it down in a notebook. Over the next 12 weeks, I am going to push you harder than you have ever been pushed. I am going to make you crawl through mud and heat and darkness. I am going to make you shoot in conditions that seem impossible. I am going to make you doubt yourself and question whether you belong here. But I am also going to teach you that size does not matter. Strength does not matter. Gender does not matter. The only thing that matters is whether you are willing to do the work. Whether you are willing to become the person who can make the impossible shot when everything depends on it. Are you ready? Yes, ma'am. The response was loud, unified. Then let us get started. Elena spent that day teaching them the fundamentals. Breathing, trigger control, scope adjustment. The boring things that nobody wanted to practice but everyone needed to master. She was patient, encouraging, firm when needed. She saw herself in these candidates. Saw the young, angry girl who came to Wraith looking for a way to turn grief into purpose. At the end of the day, as the sun was setting over the Georgia clay, Elena walked back to the range house. She stopped at the memorial hall, the wall where they mounted plaques for instructors who had died. And there, recently installed, was a new plaque. Gunnery Sergeant Thomas Sullivan, United States Marine Corps, Scout Sniper, Instructor, Mentor, one shot, one life. Make it count. Elena touched the plaque, felt the cool metal, wondered if Wraith would be proud of her, wondered if her father would be proud, wondered if she was finally becoming the person they hoped she would be. She thought she was, or at least she was trying. That night, Elena sat in her office, the same office where Wraith used to sit when he was an instructor here. His old desk, his old chair, his presence still lingering in the space. She had been putting it off for weeks, but now felt like the right time. She pulled out paper and a pen, started writing. Dear Mom, I know I have not written in a while. I know you worry when I disappear on missions I cannot talk about. I am sorry for that. I am sorry for a lot of things. For being angry after Dad died, for pushing you away, for choosing this life instead of the normal life you wanted for me. But I need you to know that I am okay now. Really okay. For the first time since Dad died, I feel like I am where I am supposed to be, doing what I am supposed to do. Dad used to say that everyone has a purpose, a reason they are here. I think I finally found mine. I am teaching now, training new snipers, passing on everything Dad and Wraith taught me, trying to make sure the next generation understands that being a warrior is not about violence. It is about protection, about service, about making choices that save lives instead of just taking them. I met someone recently who knew Dad, who was there when he died. I cannot tell you the details, but I can tell you that Dad's last thoughts were about us, about making sure we would be okay, about making sure his death meant something. And it did mean something, Mom. It meant everything, because of the way Dad died, because of the promise he asked someone to keep. Hundreds of lives have been saved, maybe thousands. Dad did not just die as a hero, he died as a teacher, showing someone else how to be better, how to turn failure into redemption, how to make every action count. I understand now why you fell in love with him, why you stayed with him even when the army took him away for months at a time, why you still talk to his picture every morning. He was not perfect, but he was good, and good is rare in this world. I love you, Mom. I will come visit soon, I promise. Your daughter, Elena. She sealed the letter, addressed it, set it aside to mail in the morning. Then she opened her desk drawer. Inside was a box. She had not opened it since arriving at Fort Benning, but tonight felt right. She opened the box. Inside were three things: the dog tag that belonged to her father, the knife that belonged to Wraith and then to James and now to her, and the sealed trident that Lawson had given her. 3 generations of warriors, 3 different paths to the same truth. Service matters, sacrifice matters, making your life count for something bigger than yourself matters. Elena took the items out, laid them on the desk, looked at them for a long time. Then she put them back, closed the box, put it back in the drawer. She did not need to carry them everywhere, did not need them to remember. The lessons they taught were already part of her, written in scar tissue and muscle memory and the way she looked at the world. She turned off the light, walked to her quarters, lay down in bed. For the first time in months, she slept without dreaming, without seeing tunnels or blood or the faces of the dead. She slept the deep, peaceful sleep of someone who had finally found their purpose, finally made peace with their past, finally understood that the measure of a warrior was not in the enemies they killed, but in the people they saved and the students they taught and the legacy they left behind. One shot, one life, make it count. She had made it count, and she would spend the rest of her life teaching others to do the same. 5 years later, Elena stood in Arlington National Cemetery. She was not in uniform, just civilian clothes, jeans, a simple jacket. She had retired from active duty 2 years ago, took a position as the civilian director of the Army Marksmanship Unit, still teaching, still training, but with more freedom, more time, more ability to say no to the things that did not align with her purpose. She was not alone today. The man walking beside her was Daniel Cooper, former Marine Corps captain. He ran a veteran support program in Maryland, helped people transitioning from combat to civilian life, helped them learn to live with invisible wounds. They had met 18 months ago at a PTSD support group that Elena had reluctantly attended at the urging of her therapist. She had not wanted to go, had not wanted to talk about the things she had seen and done, but Daniel had understood, had not pushed, had just sat beside her in silence until she was ready to speak. Now they were taking it slow. Coffee dates, long walks, conversations about everything except the wars they had fought. He made her laugh, made her feel like she could be something other than a warrior, made her think that maybe peace was possible, not just out there in the world, but inside her own chest. They walked through the rows of white headstones hand in hand, found the one she was looking for. Captain Marcus Reeves, 1st Battalion, 75th Ranger Regiment, killed in action, Afghanistan, 2008, beloved husband and father. Elena knelt down, brushed away the leaves that had fallen on the stone. It had been 6 months since her last visit. Too long. But life had been busy. The marksmanship unit was thriving. She had trained over 200 snipers in the last 5 years. Many of them were now deployed, saving lives, making impossible shots, carrying on the legacy. Daniel stood back, gave her space. He understood this ritual, had his own graves he visited, his own ghosts he talked to. "Hi, Dad." She spoke quietly, just above a whisper. "I brought you something." She pulled a newspaper clipping from her pocket. It was from the Washington Post. The headline read, "Female Sniper Instructor Revolutionizes Army Training Program." There was a photo of Elena on the range, surrounded by students, smiling. They wrote an article about the program, about what we are doing differently, teaching moral courage alongside marksmanship, teaching when not to shoot, teaching that the best warriors are the ones who prevent wars instead of just fighting them. I thought you would want to see it, thought you would be proud. She set the clipping on the headstone, weighted it down with a small rock so the wind would not take it. "I also wanted to tell you that I met with Zahir again last month. He is still in custody, still cooperating, still trying to atone. He told me more about that day, about what you said, about the kind of man you were. He was right. You were a good man, Dad, the best kind. And I am sorry it took me so long to understand that your death was not about revenge. It was about purpose, about making sure the people you left behind found meaning in your absence. I found it, Dad. I found my purpose, and I am using it to make sure your death keeps saving lives, keeps teaching lessons, keeps mattering." Elena stood, wiped her eyes. Daniel stepped forward, put his arm around her shoulders. She leaned into him, let herself be held, let herself be human instead of always being strong. "One more thing, Dad." She looked at the stone through blurred vision. "I met someone, Daniel. He is a good man, patient, kind. He understands what it means to carry the weight. I think you would like him. I think Wraith would too. I love you, Dad. I will come back soon. We both will." They walked through the cemetery together, past thousands of white stones, each one a story, each one a life, each one a reminder that freedom was not free, that peace came at a cost, that the warriors who paid that cost deserved to be remembered, deserved to have their deaths mean something. As they reached the gates, Elena saw a young couple studying the directory board. They looked lost, confused. The woman was crying, the man had his arm around her, comfort and grief in equal measure. Elena touched Daniel's hand. "Wait a moment." She approached the couple. "Excuse me, can I help you find someone?" The man looked up, wiped his eyes. "We are looking for my grandfather. He died years ago, but we never got to meet him. My grandmother just passed, and we promised we would come, would finally honor him properly." "What was his name?" "Gunnery Sergeant Thomas Sullivan, United States Marine Corps." Elena felt her breath catch. Of all the people in all the cemeteries in all the world. But maybe it was not coincidence. Maybe Wraith had earned this. One last connection, one last chance to be remembered. "I knew him." She said it simply. "He was my instructor, my mentor, one of the best men I ever knew." The young man's eyes widened. "You knew our grandfather? Come with me. I will take you to him." Elena led them through the rows. Daniel followed at a respectful distance. She found the section, found the stone. Gunnery Sergeant Thomas Sullivan, Operation Desert Storm, 1991. Scout Sniper, recipient of the Silver Star, beloved father and grandfather. The dates were right. Wraith had served in the Gulf War before retiring and becoming an instructor, had earned his Silver Star during the ground campaign, had come home and spent 30 years teaching others to be better than he was. "Wait," the young man looked confused. "This says he died in 2015, but I thought he died in the war." "He was wounded in Operation Desert Storm." Elena knelt by the stone, touched it the way she had touched her father's. "But he survived. Came home, had a son, became an instructor, taught hundreds of snipers over 30 years, including me." "You knew my grandfather?" "He was my mentor, my teacher, the man who saved my life in more ways than one." Elena stood, looked at this young couple, saw the grief and confusion and gratitude all mixed together. "Your grandfather was a great man, one of the best I have ever known, and he would be proud that you came here, that you remembered him." "Can you tell us about him?" the woman asked. "Please, we never got to meet him, never heard the stories." Elena checked her watch. She had time, and this felt important, felt like something Wraith would want. "I can tell you some stories. Not all of them. Some are classified, but I can tell you about the man he was, the teacher he was, the legacy he left behind." They sat on a bench near the grave, and Elena told them about Wraith, about his patience, his discipline, his mantra, one shot, one life, make it count. She told them about the hospital room, about the mission he listened to, about dying at peace, knowing his student had succeeded. She told them about James, about the knife, about the letter, about 3 generations of warriors connected by service and sacrifice and the belief that some things were worth dying for. When she finished, the young man was crying openly. "Thank you," he said. "Thank you for telling us, for keeping his memory alive." "It is my honor." Elena stood, gave them privacy to say their goodbyes. As she walked away, she felt lighter, like telling those stories had lifted some weight she did not know she was carrying. She left Arlington and drove back to her apartment. Small, efficient, filled with books about ballistics and psychology and philosophy. On the wall was a single photo. It showed 4 people: her father in his Ranger uniform, Wraith in his dress blues, James in his SAS gear, and Elena in her sniper instructor fatigues. The photo had been created digitally, combining images from different times, different places, but it felt real, felt true. This was her family. This was her tribe. That night, she opened her laptop, started writing. She had been working on a book for the last year, a manual for snipers. But more than that, a guide for warriors, about moral courage, about knowing when to shoot and when not to, about making every action count. She typed the dedication. "This book is dedicated to Captain Marcus Reeves, who taught me that fear is just pain leaving the body. To Gunnery Sergeant Thomas Sullivan, who taught me that one shot, one life means making it count. To Captain James Sullivan, who taught me that family is not always blood. And to Master Chief Derek Lawson, who taught me that respect is earned, not given. And to every warrior who ever faced an impossible shot and had the courage to take it, or the wisdom not to. Make it count." She saved the document, closed the laptop, went to bed, and dreamed of mountains and missions and men who had become legends. But this time the dreams were not nightmares. They were memories. Proof that she had lived, that she had served, that she had mattered. And in the morning she would wake up and do it all again. Train the next generation, pass on the lessons, build the legacy, one student at a time, one shot at a time, one life that mattered because she made it count. That was enough. That was everything. That was the purpose her father died for, that Wraith lived for, that she would spend the rest of her life honoring. One shot, one life, one legacy. The story was complete, but the mission continued, and Elena Reeves was ready for whatever came next.